cider, to borrow a W'ism, is doing and why he's doing it. And that's where it's a little unclear. I mean, I would say that with respect to Trump, first of all, and this particularly struck me after watching some of the testimony from the U.S. trade rep earlier in the week. I don't know if they really believe this trade deficit rap, or they're just using it as a predicate to reorder international trade.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, this is sort of consistent with what Trump does across policy, at least things that are his particular focus at the time. Do something dramatic, big and dramatic. Get a big and dramatic reaction and watch it play out, feel it play out for a little while, and then make adjustments on the fly according to market feedback.
Yeah, but the problem is people lost. I mean, a lot of people on fixed incomes lost tens of thousands of dollars, and people are getting a little yippee. You know,
they made much of it, not all of it, much of it back in about 4 hours yesterday.
Right, but it was yippee.
That's the market.
Cool. It's going to work out. Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippee, you know. They were getting a little bit yippee, a little bit afraid. Nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair. They will be fair deals for everybody. The big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. You have to have flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Right. Big move, and then you're flexible. It's just we've been saying the entire time. He's pragmatic. He's not ideological. He's not a neo-mercantilist ideologue. He believes that this is a intelligent, strategic approach to get America to a better place. A better place, I think, would be freer trade. And, you know, so does Trump, with all of his protectionist rhetoric notwithstanding. I mean, he's the one who went from NAFTA to the USMCA, which was a slight improvement. And this is what I think you're going to see a net here over the course of the next several weeks and several months as deals are made. Net, you're going to see deals that are akin to moving from NAFTA to USMCA, which is a marginal benefit to American consumers. But, you know, the life is played on the margin, so marginal benefit is good, but there's going to be some rough patches from here to getting to, you know, the end of the course, if you will. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. That's what I suspect. Now, again, I've also said it's a high wire act. And over the last several days, he has demonstrated exactly what I was referencing when I talked about it being a high wire act based on market swings per his pronouncements. And not just the market swings. I mean, we're not just completely obsessed with the market, but it is important. Oh, by the way, don't give me this Wall Street versus Main Street silliness. It's not a either or. Main Street is heavily invested in Wall Street. 60% of Main Street owns equities. So let's not be silly about this either and engage in the mindless class warfare that is usually attendant to the left. I mean, the deal with China is ultimately the biggest and most important deal. Taking advantage of trying to isolate China by cutting deals with all of our erstwhile allies, and encouraging them not to cut their own throats, as Scott Bessent said earlier in the week at the American Bankers Association.
I'm not sure whether it was the Prime Minister or the Economic Minister in Spain made some comments this morning. Oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat, because I can tell you that these Chinese exports that the U.S. tariff wall is going to keep out, that China, for all of you who can remember that Disney movie of the brooms carrying the buckets of water, that is a Chinese business model. It never stops. They just keep producing and producing and dumping, and it's going somewhere. And you know, I think, Rob, at the end of the day, that we can probably reach a deal with our allies, with the other countries, that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
Well, okay. I mean, that could have been done at the outset, although the contrarian argument would be the EU and Vietnam and South Korea, Japan wouldn't have taken us seriously, would have slow walked us on negotiating a reduction in trade barriers, tariffs, tariff rates, and other trade barriers, if we just came with the carrot and not the stick. So we had to get to, well, to borrow from Francis Urquhart, House of Cards, we had to put a little stick about to get everybody in line on our side. Now we ultimately get this alignment, and then we come to China as a group with even more leverage and say, you have to do X, Y, and Z if otherwise you're going to crater your economy. And even though President Xi, doesn't matter how many of his own citizens he kills or impoverishes or imprisons, at some point there is destabilization that comes if you have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Chinese nationals who are unable to make ends meet or worse. So it's not without, I mean, he has a higher tolerance because of the violence he's willing to do to his citizens. I'm talking about Xi, but it is not completely risk-free for him either. And this is why Kevin O'Leary said what he said, which we'll get to. Nick, Northwest Side, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Yeah, thank you. First, I'd like to say, Dan, your intellect and your experience and the patience you show your guests and callers is why I'm a loyal listener. So
thank you.
I want to express that because there's been some controversy. But regarding the comment that Trump made, it's been, you know what it is about they can kiss his ass, or they are doing that. And
puckering up,
I just
yes.
felt that, yeah, he should be more careful, because when you get to people like Xi, people who are totalitarian control type people, they don't appreciate something like that. I'm sure, it was not said of him, but they can picture themselves as giving in to something fair and reasonable, but doing it because of the person Trump making a comment about the others. Like, here's another one that came into me and sucked up to me, and it's
right. You don't want to embarrass somebody you're trying to cut a deal with. You don't want to make it impossible for them, right? You got to let them save face here. There's no reason to spike
Embarrass
the football.
is the right word. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so that's
Thanks.
it. And keep
Thanks
up
for the call,
work.
Nick. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, he was spiking the football before that National Republican Congressional Committee dinner, so sort of spiking it to the team while he was chiding some members of Congress who wanted to have some negotiating role in all of this.
You want Chuck Schumer negotiating tariffs?
Well, I think he was talking about House Republicans and Senate Republicans,
okay.
but still, he was no more a fan of that than Chuck Schumer doing it. Marty, Naperville.
Good morning. Amy, do you put your mask on before you check your 401k every 34 seconds? Just chill out, man. Everybody becomes a financial genius when stuff like this happens. Just like all the people who say the billionaires don't pay enough taxes. How does the average person know how much a billionaire pays? Bernie Sanders, at first it's the millionaires don't pay enough taxes. Now, since he's a millionaire, it's the billionaires.
Right.
Just everybody just relax. Amy, stop checking your 401k every 34 seconds. And put your mask away. So
thanks for the call, Marty. Well, she is getting to that.
In my pocket.
She is getting to that tender age.
Okay, easy. It'll happen to you because somebody has a birthday coming up this month, and it ain't me, girlfriend.
No, but I mean, but Marty, yes, you don't live and die based on the market on a daily basis. But
It's
if
just
you're
the
near
uncertainty of it. Sorry.
Well, but also if you're near retirement age, I mean, it's different if you're, you still have a long view. If you're near retirement age, and you're seeing not just the market taking a hammering, but the prospect of a recession and global recession and perhaps a deep global recession. I mean, I didn't join this panic, of course, but I'm just saying I can understand why if you're a little bit closer to the end of the line for income coming in, then you would be a little bit concerned.
I was with a 80-year-old woman on Tuesday, and she was supposed to get new carpet and new windows. She canceled it both. Like I'm
Well,
on a fixed income, and I've got money directly tied to the stock market, and this is scaring me.
yeah, well, the vagaries. The flip side is we've had an artificial high and a run in the market for 8 years, and there has to be a reckoning for that at some point too. I mean, so you want to be empathetic, but you also have to put things in a little bit of context here. And Marty is right, generally speaking. Panic as your first response, almost never a good idea.
I'm not a panicking anymore. Yeah.
That's good. All right, we'll take more of your calls and talk more about the nuances of all things Trump tariff ride related. 538.
But first, we have to head into that newsroom and say good morning to Nikki Whaley.
Good morning. It's 39 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. President Trump says his 90-day pause on tariffs was not part of the planned negotiation with foreign countries. Speaking from the Oval Office, Trump says sometimes it's not a negotiation until it is.
And it may not be a negotiation. It may not last. I mean, things may be as that I think are not fair to us. Look, we've been ripped off by essentially everybody for 35 years.
He added that the U.S. has to stay flexible during this period. The pause excludes China, but Trump said that China wants to make a deal. The president expressed confidence that a trade deal will be made with every country. Mayor Brandon Johnson hopes to get a better handle on the city's next budget. He sent a letter to aldermen with a list of scheduled budget-focused meetings starting next month. This report is sponsored by Rapid Radios. Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. Business owners can keep in touch with up to 200 staff members at one time. Go to rapidradios.com now for up to 60% off and free shipping. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Larry Elder doesn't expect to see any judges impeached.
Altogether, there have been 15 federal judges who have been impeached. None was impeached for making bad judicial decisions, using wrong-headed interpretations of precedents, or unpopular judicial decisions. Not one.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy. Pretty much hands off, They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Do you enjoy researching sofas before you buy?
No way. I just want the best sofa, period.
Sounds like you want the SB261 sofa from Penny Mustard.
It's our #1 bestseller.
Fine.
If the SB261 sofa was in high school, it would be voted homecoming queen and king.
I'm sold.
5 stars, A+, and everyone's thumbs are up.
Stop talking and take my money.
The SB261 sofa, starting at $29.30 at Penny Mustard.
7 locations throughout Chicagoland.
PennyMustard.com.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
Steel walk behind, zero turn, and stand-on mowers are built to get the job done. Shop online or at your local Steel dealer. Steel, let's go mow.
How can you get from here to there? We've got the answer from the AM 560 Traffic Center.
Eden's inbound Lake Cook to Montrose clear in 15 minutes. There's both in and outbound. Traffic is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. Inbound on the Kennedy from O'Hare to Burn Interchange, 17 minutes. Montrose, less than 10. Outbound is the same. Inbound Eisenhower from Wolf to Burn Interchange, 25 minutes. Reverse trip is the same. Drivers inbound on the Stevenson from 355 to Lakeshore, 20 minutes. Harlem to the Dan Ryan, less than 10. Seeing the Tuesday morning drive pick up on the Dan Ryan inbound express lanes between 33rd and the Stevenson Expressway. Also slow, same story on the Bishop Ford inbound. You are slow Cottage Grove to the Dan Ryan. That'll take you about 17 minutes. On the Veterans Memorial Expressway in and out between 290 and I-80, less than 30. From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm KT.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy talking Trump's wild tariff ride. We'll talk more about the markets at the bottom of the 6 o'clock hour with our friend Jim Uriel, but there's so much to get to on this. Just talking about, picking up on what we were talking about before the news, our friend Brian Westbury had a good post, Economist First Trust. I don't know how to get this across to people. The U.S. tripled its money supply in the past 18 years. It held interest rates at 0 for 9 of those years. Everyone thinks mortgage rates should be 3.5% and the stock market only goes up. Stocks were overvalued and interest rates were artificially low. How come no one thinks there's a price to be paid for that? All we're doing is returning to normal after a bender. Yeah, well, we're sort of doing it in a crash course kind of way, which is a bit stunning to people. But he's not wrong. He's not wrong. In fact, the point of this, beyond tariffs, it just sort of illustrates the point, the reaction to. For generations, politicians have conditioned Americans to believe they can live in a world without consequences. We hear that from the Pauls in Illinois all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever choices you make that go sideways, we have a program or a bailout or a forgiveness plan to socialize the consequences. Scarcity isn't real. Supply and demand doesn't matter. By whatever means necessary, dear government. The new American compact seems to be, I disadvantage you to advantage me, and you disadvantage me to advantage you when you have the political power to do so. And we just go round and round and round. Who's got the political power to impose costs and extract benefits from people? So there's a fundamental cultural problem that so much of the reaction is highlighting, because, of course, the hypocrisy abounds. Not just on tariffs in general, but on China specifically. 30 years ago, when Congress was debating most favored nation status for China, remember the idea was we were going to bring the Chinese Communist Party into the community of nations, and once we made them a trading partner, we would be economically tied, and that would lead to the liberalization of China. And what happened instead, to this point, is that we have unintentionally underwritten a brutal, repressive regime. But here was Nancy Pelosi arguing against most favored nation status for China 30 years ago.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status.
Right. And Chuck Schumer during that same time period.
It says to the Chinese, enough already. It says to the Chinese that their unfair trade policies have got to end. It says to the Chinese, this is a shot across your bow. Reform, because if you don't, there are going to be dramatic consequences throughout the world, in our country, and in your country as well. The bottom line is very simple, Mr. President. The Chinese have enjoyed a huge trade surplus with the United States, as this chart shows. Every year, it gets larger and larger and larger. Admittedly, some of that trade surplus is due to the rules of free trade. But much of that trade surplus is because the Chinese don't play fair.
He even back then, 30 years ago, said huge the same way Trump does. Maybe it's a New York thing. Huge.
Huge. Going on.
So
312-642-5600, by the way, yes.
That was Pelosi and Schumer 3 decades ago, arguing against MFN status for China, talking tariffs, talking trade deficits, mowing trade deficits the same way that Trump does today. Trump was asked to react to those previous positions of Pelosi and Schumer, the very similar position to Trump is taking today. The only difference is he's acting on it.
You know, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, see, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. It's really, I think it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country is going to be, there'll be nothing like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before.
Transitioning to greatness, are you going to be patient during this transitory period? So they say. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. The one point about this, though, because Caroline Leavitt made the same argument, as you would expect, being the mouthpiece for the president, about the words of Pelosi and Schumer and even Sherrod Brown, formerly of Ohio.
Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, how far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996. Well, President Trump is finally answering her call 27 years later. Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future economic growth. And Chuck Schumer said that in 2007. Finally, in 2025, President Trump is taking action. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede last year's record. The trade deficit had cost American workers millions of jobs at the time. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America, to boost our manufacturing industry. He's doing what's right for the American people.
Well, okay. So is that persuasive to you, that those were the words of Pelosi and Schumer and Sherrod Brown over the years, and now they're the words of President Trump, and he's taking action in furtherance of those words, so hooray? Does that logically follow?
312-642-5600 is our turnkey.pro answer line. You can also text us on this line.
Is that persuasive? This is what they said. And now Trump is, and now as Caroline Levitt said, Pelosi can thank President Trump. Neil in the Grange.
Two things. Number one, boy, this new press secretary, what a difference between the last one, okay?
Yeah.
Somebody's actually thinking on their feet, you know what I mean, rather than have to look at a binder.
Well, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, Caroline Levitt looks like Winston Churchill compared to KJP, but she's got her shortcomings. She's still a kid.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, but more importantly, just listening to what you said about Pelosi and Schumer, the thing that I picked up was they said 30 years ago. They've been there 30 stinking years. There's something wrong with that.
More than that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's 30 years. And, they always change their tune. Remember, look at our lovely Senator Durbin. He doesn't want to change the filibuster, and then he wants to change the filibuster.
Right.
When Durbin was a congressman, how long has Durbin been a congressman? In Congress when he was a congressman from Central Illinois, he was pro-life.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
They all have evolved into.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Neil. Well, I get that they're human weather vanes, but I guess my point is to say, running around saying you agree with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Sherrod Brown is not something that should inspire confidence in your position. Do you think Sherrod Brown and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have a pretty good handle on economics and sound economic policy? Is that reflective of their records? So I understand you're talking about the hypocrisy, but I mean that is not a credential that the Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, even of 30 years ago, would endorse what I'm doing today. Greg in Jefferson Park.
Hey, good morning, guys. I think one of the things people are missing is sound economic policies and fiscal policies. I mean, we got these interest rates, which are still historically low compared with the way the economy is. I mean, we got low unemployment, yet there's all these people out of work or not working, not looking for work, so on and so forth. The Federal Reserve just keeps printing money. Trump said we're going to get out of these wars. We're still in both of them big time now. Looking at bombing Iran. I mean, how many $1 trillion is that going to cost? I really don't see. It's good. I think that we're doing some of this terror stuff, and we get some of these countries to realign with tariffs with respect to our products. I think if Europe gives up products or tariffs on the cars, you're going to see Corvettes being built and sold there like it's going out of style. But notwithstanding that, China, to hell with China. I could care less about China. But, I don't see us getting out of this without another serious depression-like economic happening, in the long run or in the short run, too. You guys have a good one.
Thanks for the call. I'm not so pessimistic as that. I don't think it's inexorable that we have to even go into a recession, much less something deeper. Oh, really? But yeah, I prefer that some scalpels be employed rather than just meat axes. I will tell you that. Or you cut to the chase. I mean, you cut way to the chase. Like Kevin O'Leary suggested on CNN yesterday. Kevin O'Leary from...
Mr. Wonderful. Yeah, we know.
That Mark Cuban show. What do they call it?
Shark Tank.
Yeah, that's it.
104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration...
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Squeeze Chinese heads into the wall. Interesting.
Yeah.
That was the name of my college garage band.
Oh, cover for what?
Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys killed it back then. The mean streets of Wheaton.
Kevin O'Leary said the 400% tariffs, cheese on a plane tomorrow to begin negotiations.
That's not going to happen. But, China needs us. I mean, they need our market. They need us, our customers, or their customers. So they're going to have to do something at some point in time.
George in Naperville.
Yes, in the words of Patrick Swayze, no one puts baby Chi in a corner.
Yeah, well, Kevin O'Leary disagrees with you. Mark's outside.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump has been talking about China for 30 years, so none of this should surprise anybody. But I think one of the factors that's fueling his fire, and he's going to squeeze China for everything they got, is COVID. He's never going to forget what it did to this country. And as recently as yesterday in the White House, he referenced COVID, and he said that the Democrats used COVID to cheat in the 2020 election. So I think COVID has a lot to do with the way he's going after China. He's going to get even.
All right. Thanks for the call, Mark. Craig, Mount Greenwood.
Oh, hey. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I don't disagree with the things you're saying with regard to, Trump, what part of it is really the, planned and all that stuff like that. But here's the thing. Trump has got either like a horseshoe in his butt or he's a bit smarter than people give him credit for. It's like he kind of knows, like he's going to do something. He knows what he wants, and he may not always know exactly how to get there, but he's got all these different things that he does or says, and different crazy things. And so often it works out to his, where he comes out on top. It's just amazing with that guy.
Well, let's hope so. Thanks for the call, Craig. Although, I mean, it didn't come up. The last round of tariffs in Trump 1.0, his first term, didn't come out great for everybody. But again, the comprehensive 40 minutes of hell, Nolan Richardson approach here, full press on friends and enemies alike when it comes to tariff rates and non-tariff trade hurdles. If the net is moving more free trade, including a deal with China, because that's going to be a necessity,
right?
Then he will have come out on top. He will have. But that is still pending, isn't it? Dan and Amy, Chicago's Morning Answer.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
Are you looking for fair news coverage out of the nation's capital? Join the Center Square's Editor-in-Chief Dan McCaleb and DC Bureau Chief Casey Harper as they discuss all things coming out of Washington, D.C.
And as you said, I did a fact check on this because I really found it pretty misleading. Gas prices, yes, are down. But if you look at food prices, they increased.
No spin, just the news. Listen to the America in Focus podcast at americastalking.com or wherever you get your podcast.
You need a construction company, but who?
Call Crosscom.
A construction company you can trust that shares your Christian and conservative values. For decades, Crosscom has been doing work in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, and Wisconsin. Roofs, siding, windows, doors, gutters, basically everything for your home or business, even solar. Quality work and professional services that make you feel great about your decision to work with Crosscom.
Call Crosscom.
630-871-5500. Give them a chance to earn your business. If your repairs are due to storm, fire, or flood damage, you need to
call Crosscom.
They're licensed public adjusters. They work for you, not the insurance company. Crosscom will work to get you the money you deserve, the maximum payout. They know the insurance companies and how to deal with them. They win for you.
Call Crosscom.
Crosscom Construction and Public Adjusters.
This is Dan Lights with Crosscom. You can trust us with your home or business for high-quality work and fair prices. It's the only way we do business.
630-871-5500. CrosscomPublicAdjusters.com.
Mike Lindell and his employees want to personally thank you for your continued support of MyPillow. They have a big allotment of their bed sheets that were earmarked for the box stores this spring. Well, they did it again. The box stores didn't come through, so they're going to pass the savings on to you. Now there is no middleman, so you're going to get wholesale prices on their famous Giza Dreams and Percale bed sheets. Giza Dream queen size normally $139.98. Your wholesale price $69.99. King size only $79.99. Percale queen size normally $89.98. Your wholesale price $29.98. King size only $34.98. So go to mypillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201. Free shipping options available. This allotment won't last long. When they're gone, they're gone. So remember, go to mypillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 to get these amazing wholesale offers.
Enjoy uninterrupted programming from Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson around the clock, all day, every day, including daily replays of Chicago's Morning Answer on Dan and Amy 24/7. Listen now at danandamy247.com. AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Pardon my Margaret Carlson, but we do have so much to get to, but I think I have goaded our in-house historian, Frank, the history teacher from Arlington Heights, into a bad position, just like Trump goaded the Chinese Communist Party into a bad position. So we're going to do a little bit more tariff talk and trade talk at 6:06.
And then
stay tuned for Frank from Arlington Heights, because you know he'll have a incisive opinion and take on this.
Yes, and we want to hear about your practice day at the Masters later on.
I played well.
Okay, I'm sure you did. Today, another cold one. Highs in the low 40s at 6 a.m. WIND Chicago.
Another American jailed in Russia set free. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
This is so important, and it shows that this country now, under President Trump, is going to be diligent and aggressive in getting Americans home.
Republican Senator Ashley Moody reacting on Fox a short time ago after Ksenia Karelina was released, now flying back to the U.S.
Karelina was arrested in January of 2024 in Yekaterinburg during a visit to see her family. She was jailed for donating about $50 to a charity supporting Ukraine on the first day of Russia's invasion. The court found her guilty of high treason, sentencing her to imprisonment in a penal colony. The amateur ballerina and Los Angeles resident became a U.S. citizen in 2021. Her family and her loved ones have been vocal in their efforts demanding her release.
That's Fox's Alex Hogan. It was a prisoner swap, releasing a German-Russian dual citizen the U.S. had wanted for supplying Russia's military with technology. Now a tariff update. The European Union has just agreed to a 90-day pause to its retaliation on charging American exports the morning after President Trump paused reciprocal tariffs he'd put in place, saying we need to fix trade imbalances.
No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it.
Now, President Trump is keeping in place a 10% tariff on most imports and increased the one on Chinese goods to 125% after China retaliated with bigger tariffs. Now, on Wall Street, stock futures are dropping again, nearly 500 points for the Dow, after the Dow's nearly 3,000 points surge and a big rebound yesterday because of this pause. The president says he knows his terrorist policies had spooked investors.
They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
It's up to 184 people dead now in that Dominican Republic nightclub disaster when the roof collapsed early Tuesday. Among the dead, singer Ruby Perez, who was performing when the roof came down. More than 200 people injured. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 38 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. The House of Representatives wants to restrict the power federal judges have to issue nationwide injunctions. The GOP-led House passed a bill Wednesday that would make it so judges could only provide orders that apply to parties directly involved in a case. The move comes after a number of injunctions against several of President Trump's executive orders. President Trump says his 90-day pause on tariffs isn't a planned negotiation with foreign countries. He said sometimes it's not a negotiation until it is, adding that the U.S. has to stay flexible during this period. The pause excludes China, but Trump says China still wants to make a deal. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is the new U.S. ambassador to Israel. A Senate vote Wednesday was mostly along party lines. University of Chicago officials say 7 international students have had their visas revoked. They've confirmed that the federal government has terminated the F1 status of 3 current students and 4 recent graduates. The University of Office of International Affairs is offering to link the people affected with immigration attorneys. Visas have been revoked for students nationwide under the Trump administration. Police say a man died after he fell into the Chicago River on the city's Lower West Side. The incident happened Wednesday morning near 23rd and Halstead. Fire officials say the man was found in the water 10 minutes after searching. News is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. What if you could save on average 90% for dental implants and get 100% of your smile back with a Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO or FEP? It's possible. Check if you qualify at almostfreeteeth.com. I check the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
For nearly a decade, AM 560 has marked the start of summer with a night of cigar smoking and great conversation. And this year, we've expanded Cigar Night to 2 nights. Wednesday, May 21st at Gobert's Farm in Pingree Grove. And Thursday, May 22nd at Gaelic Park in Oak Forest. Featuring the great Larry Elder, along with AM 560's Dan Proft and Sean Thompson. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. Sponsored by Opum Tax Advocates and attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money? A bigger house? Maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How you wake up each day? How you sleep? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or even eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. So give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. And it just takes a phone call, 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Wherever you're hurting, in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF.
Perhaps you're a collector, or perhaps all of a sudden you have a collection. Maybe it's an inheritance. How do you know what it's worth? This is Sean Thompson for Donley Auction. The market for antiques and collectibles is changing all the time. What is your collection worth right now? Well, I've got an easy way to find out. It's simple. You contact Donley Auctions. With their worldwide audience of live and in-person auctions, they have a good idea of how to tell you exactly what it's worth at exactly right now. They're ready to put top dollar in your pocket. The bigger the collection, the better. Go to DonleyAuctions.com and get the info on all things that they buy and sell to have an idea of exactly what Donley does and how much they need your collection. They have so many buyers, it's a great time to sell. Just simply make a phone call. Donley has traveled all over the country to pick up collections. Just call and talk to the people at Donley Auctions at 815-923-7000. Donley Auctions is your trusted partner in turning your collections into cash. DonleyAuctions.com.
Taking a look at the roads on the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 14 minutes outbound, 13 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 9 minutes outbound, about 13 minutes. On the Eisenhower, inbound from Wolf to the old post office, 13 minutes. Outbound, about 13 minutes. On the Stevenson, inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 18 minutes. On the outbound side, about 15 minutes. On the Dan Ryan, inbound from 95th to the Burnett Interchange, 13 minutes. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. No waiting, no problems, no charge. For in-store verbal appraisals, bring your gold or silver in today. FoxValleyCoins.com. From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Jim Urio, we've got to get to early today, 6:06, because he's going to make a killing with all this volatility, to be sure.
Right.
Or he's going to get killed, but he's too good to get killed, so he's going to make a killing. And plus, he's already cornered the market in gold, so what does it matter if he loses a little money? But before we do that, I did promise Frank, our in-house historian, because I think he's got a point to make that will set up something perfectly, and he doesn't even know it. That's how good he is. Frank from Arlington Heights, go ahead. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Thanks for taking my call. So here's the thing. We all can admit that free markets are better. There's a supply and demand curve there. If the governments don't intervene, that's best, because those curves are always changing. They're always changing their slope. There's different things that happen all the time in the market. But if other governments are, let's assume our government is less corrupt than other governments in the world, and if other governments are manipulating things through currency manipulation, through all their tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, and we allow our internal structure of our economy to deteriorate, if indeed we've had 90,000 factories basically shut down in this country over the last 30, 40 years, isn't it really the duty, if we want to have a government of, by, and for the people, for our government to take actions to be able to restore that? And if that involves, we want to develop our own internal trade network, isn't that better if the rest of the world is manipulating stuff in the manner that is destructive to our economy? Isn't it the responsibility of our government to do something about that, to develop our own internal markets?
It's a great question. Thank you for that, Frank. Appreciate it. I wish we had more time to dissect it. Perhaps a commentary next week in Frank's in-depth history. I'm going to cede my time on that, ultimately to Jim Urio, but first to Art Laffer. Laffer and Kudlow had a really good exchange this week on Kudlow's show. And Laffer made the point that we haven't discussed enough.
What's that?
To Frank's point about internal markets, internal trade. What about trade in this country? And also, what really is the state of manufacturing in this country? We talk about it nationwide, but is it a nationwide problem? Or is it a problem in some states, Rust Belt states, and not so much a problem in other states?
When I look at manufacturing in the U.S. and how we've been losing it, it's not China's fault or the rest of the world's fault. We should be looking in the mirror. The problem, as Pogo said, it's us. If you look at the manufacturing states like Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Wisconsin, they're all the highest tax states in the nation. Who wants to locate a new factory in Detroit? No one. It's forced union. It's all these things. The taxes there are terrible. We don't have any problem with manufacturing here in Tennessee. Believe me when I tell you, they're all coming here. The problem is our states are pushing manufacturing out of this country in a way because of their very bad policies. If we had good economic policies in the U.S. at the state and local level, as well as Trumponomics on the federal level, we'd have manufacturing coming to this country by the barrel. I mean, it would be amazing.
What about that, Jim Urio? Is the fault not in our stars, dear Brutus, but in our ourselves, that we are underlings. Jim Urio, host of the Future's Edge podcast, special contributor to Wire Points, proprietor of Brandt's Restaurant in Palatine, corner of the market and corner of the gold market. Go ahead, Jim.
So I was chomping at the bit there. I don't think there's any rational and reasonable person who would disagree with what Art Laffer said. And Frank from Arlington Heights is right, and he hit on something that's very, very important in this whole discussion. He said for decades, realistically, it's been since the 80s where we started to let China kind of play unfairly with currency manipulation, regulatory manipulation, and that is about the same time we started tightening the screws on taxes and regulation in this country to get to a point where it's very, very difficult to manufacture.
Except though, but I mean this. But to take Laffer's point, don't talk to me about problems with manufacturing industry in burgeoning places like South Carolina and Texas and Tennessee. You talk to me about it in the high tax, high regulatory states like Illinois. So to his point, yeah, Illinois should be a manufacturing mecca because of its central location and its natural infrastructure, and it's not because of terrible public policy. So don't put that on. Don't say protectionism is the answer. The answer is for Rust Belt states that are ideally situated for manufacturing to adopt different policies. That's more fundamental than some of this other stuff.
Yeah, and that will never happen if we have this collectivist federal government and lean towards federalism, and every state kind of operates with this implicit guarantee that the federal government will bail them out if they have stupid policy and drive business away. That's why I've always been, the states' rights people, this economy is supposed to work with states competing against each other. And if it wasn't for the umbrella federal government, as soon as Illinois started to do stupid things, which, by the way, has been a long time since Illinois started to do stupid things, their next-door neighbor would say, you know what, there's an opportunity. But as long as the federal government has its hand in everything, then that kind of discourages that sort of behavior. But I did want to get back to a point that Frank made, which I think is the crux of the whole situation we're in now. We've let them do this, the world do this to us on trade policy for decades, probably 40 years. We're trying to fix. Donald Trump thinks he's got 2 years to fix this before the midterm election. I personally think that's where the whole problem lies. This is realistically, to not disturb markets, this should take 5 to 8 years to try to institute new trade policies, and we're trying to do it in 2. That's where the rocky road is. And I've said the whole time that 2025 was going to be a rocky road, both economically and for asset prices. And so far that's been the case.
Well, what's going to happen with China? I mean, their economy relies on exports, and we're a huge customer of their countries.
So the rational mind would say that China has to break and make concessions. But we've seen this forever with these politicians, and they dig their heels in. And China doesn't have to deal with a dissatisfied electorate like we do. The only thing they have to worry about is if they really break everything, then there'll be hangings in the square, a la Marie Antoinette. And that's what they really have to worry about. So they have a little more rope to go with than we do. And the whole thing, by the way, this entire trade war thing, it's like an old Western where 70 other people are shot and laying on the dusty road, and it's just the United States and China, which was always the way the script was written for it to be. And even to make it even more specific, it's really one product that matters the most, and that's semiconductors. So that brings Taiwan into the whole thing. So the question is who blinks. China will blink, but the blink, I'm hoping that it's not going to be. I mean, when you have trade wars like this, it is not that uncommon for it to start to erupt and percolate into something more than just a trade war. I'm not saying that anyone's going to war. I'm just saying we're opening the door to geopolitical risk with Taiwan and semiconductor.
Well, there's also something else too. I mean, for all of this talk about now we're going to cut deals and EU's going to go on a 90-day pause and we're going to reestablish our ties that bind to our allies and hopefully get trade deals that reduce barriers on both sides of the Atlantic and elsewhere. But I mean, this is sort of the cartel model. It's very hard to keep a group together. Just ask OPEC, which is one of the most successful cartels ever. But generally speaking, they fall apart very quickly because there's so much incentive to cheat. And you heard Bessent earlier in this week talking about, some dignitary from Spain talked about maybe we need to establish closer ties to China, and him warning them that you'd be cutting your throat because you're trying to keep it together. And we're not the only client state, if you want to talk trade in those terms, which I loathe because we're not a customer. I'm a customer of Walmart. I'm not an employee of America, and I'm a customer of China. I'm a customer of businesses here that engage in exports and imports in China, like Walmart, for example. So we talk about it in all the wrong way, which leads to all kinds of misunderstandings about what trade really is. But I digress. The point is, how do you keep all of these people together where China, we could be, at hundreds of percentages in tariff going both back and forth in a couple of weeks, and they're cutting side deals with these Western countries, just like we've seen with Russia providing oil and gas in the black market to Western European nations. There's a huge incentive to cheat. So the idea that you can bring this force multiplier and this group is going to hold together real neatly, that's a little Pollyannish too.
What could I possibly add to that? That was a beautiful rant. No, that's good.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right, and the Russian oil thing is fantastic. Because all you do when you embargo oil or you have restrictions on it, all you do is are forcing different avenues of the supply chain, and they white label it and it comes to the world market. It just takes longer time. So really, you're hamstringing yourself when you do that. But how do you get other countries to abide by the deals we make? I have no idea. That's been a problem for forever. All you can do as part of the deal is to have inspection and have people on the inside and try to enforce it. But to your point, I don't know what the solution is to that. I was going to ask you.
So let me give you an opportunity to rant, because Bessent did this riff too, and it's one of these canards that just always rubs me the wrong way. But the politicians use it, so I know Bessent is smarter than to say it, but this is taking the House political line and advancing it. I understand. The idea that it's Main Street's turn. Wall Street had its run. Now it's Main Street's turn, as if Wall Street and Main Street are not connected.
I think that's a silly thing, too. And I think what they're playing on is this ridiculous notion that if we bring manufacturing back to this country, that all of a sudden, small town America, middle America is going to have these factories and people working on assembly lines. That's not the way manufacturing is anymore. As a matter of fact, we manufacture quite a bit here, probably more than we did in the 70s and 80s. It's just basically all automated. There's no more of these tedious, mind-numbing jobs on assembly lines. So that's not happening, too. Now, there is jobs associated with manufacturing coming back, but they're more, high-tech programmer jobs, construction jobs. But the real reason we need manufacturing to come back, or we want manufacturing to come back, is so supply lines don't run through China, which that's become a problem in the past, and particularly for things like rare earths and things that we need that could really hamstring us. And it does come back to the semiconductor thing. That really, if you shut down the semiconductor line, people don't even realize what chips are used for and how many in their daily lives are in the products they use. That's the big, huge deal. But, to think that manufacturing, and all of a sudden we're back to, small towns in Iowa being like a hub that people stay in for generations, I think that ship has sailed.
So then you saw, obviously, Dow futures are down big again today. So this bounce yesterday is only going to go so long because the dynamic is still a precarious one. So, what do you see sort of over the next month or two, depending on whether, let's say, deals get cut with a lot of our allies, the big ones, EU, Mexico, Canada, but not China? How much of a weight on equities will a impasse between the United States and China be?
So there's two elements to the equity question. The first part is the macroeconomic fundamental picture, like you're saying. So now I believe that it's fully just about U.S. and China. It goes in one or two directions. One, they blink, or two, we really start to knuckle down and run supply lines through Vietnam, through India, and try to cut China out. We talked on our show, The Futures Edge, we talked about this with Vivek Ramaswamy about a year ago, and he thinks that's a process that should take about 5 or 6 years. So that's a long haul. Back to the stock market. Now, the stock market, independent of everything's going around fundamentally, this is sometimes people outside the market have a difficult time with. Market positioning oftentimes dictates moves. So consider this. So all of a sudden, you've been in the market for a couple of years. It's running. All of a sudden, you're looking at your 401k, and it's up and down and highly volatile and mostly down. You're like, okay, I should have lightened up. So then when we see strength like yesterday, you're like, okay, this is my opportunity to take some risk off. And now that's independent of the fundamental story.
Mm-hmm.
That's just people reassessing risk. And I think that's the next leg down in the stock market. I don't love the stock market yet.
So, this is the proverbial dead cat bounce that was yesterday.
That's what I believe, too. By the way, I wanted to add something else, too. I talked to a money manager, and then I ran a poll on Twitter. He said he's getting tons of calls from his clients, and it is split 50-50 about who wants to add risk and who wants to de-risk, and it's 100% political. And I'm like, well, how do you know that they're Democrats? He's like, they tell you. They love to brag about that they're selling because of Donald Trump. And then I ran a poll on Twitter. Hundreds of responses of money managers around this country saying the same exact thing. I'm telling people now, because you don't like the president and think that he's going to destroy everything is one thing, but if you just don't like his personality and are going with what the legacy media tells you, that is an asinine reason to be selling your stock.
Right. Short of the Chinese communists embargoing Taiwan, per your comment about semiconductors, this could languish for a while.
I think there's a definite possibility. I think my base case is that it's settled within the next 3 months, but that's only by a very narrow margin. I think we have to prepare for the possibility that we're there for the long haul, and we do want to reroute supply chains away from China.
Well, and if that did come to pass, then we have a whole new set of inflationary pressures on the economy, don't we?
Oh, there's no question about that. And China's the beauty of, well, not the beauty, but when China, when we tariff China, and anyone has tariffed China historically, they're very quick to subsidize the industry. So anyone who's like, when Trump said the other countries pay the tariff, there is a certain degree that he was right. China has a history of subsidizing markets that are tariffed by other countries. But yes, we have relied on cheap labor from China and Southeast Asia in general to live a life we've lived for a long time, since the 90s. So yes, is our standard of living going to take a little bit of a hit? Yes, it's probably taken a little bit of a hit to most people since 2020. And I think there's absolutely been a K-shaped recovery, but I do think, again, I don't mean to sound negative. I don't think the sky is falling, and I think 2026 is going to be a wild beneficiary for 2025 that's rocking.
What do you think about, Kevin O'Leary offered this prescription, which is sort of geopolitical more so than economic, but he called for, impose a 400% tariff on China right now because that'll put Xi on a plane tomorrow to negotiate a deal.
I'm not with Kevin on that. I've known Kevin for a long time. We don't see eye on quite a few things. I think we're already being very aggressive, and Donald Trump is taking a sledgehammer in. I hope he succeeds, and I think there's a chance he does, and I know why he's doing it because we talked about the time constraints before. But to up the ante right now, I think that's a mistake. I think I don't know much about politics, but it definitely seems like you have to allow the person on the other side to save face a little bit. These are very proud, narcissistic people who get to these spots. I think it is foolish and folly to think that you can just back him into a corner and he'll fold all his cards and give you what you want.
Jim Urio, host of the Futures Edge podcast, special contributor to WirePoints, wirepoints.org, and proprietor of Brandt's Restaurant in Palatine. Jim, good luck as you go to war in the markets today.
I'm too old for this stuff, man. These markets are crazy. I'm getting grayer hair every day.
All right. Just have a burger at Brandt's. You'll be fine. And
Jim, feel better. I agree.
Yeah, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
You heard me talk about Relief Factor and how so many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF for Relief Factor.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org/wellness.
If the amazing regenerative treatments at QC Kinetics provided relief for former pro football player Bobby Carpenter, imagine the potential for your aching joints.
So my knee had been bothering me for a while. I played football for a number of years. I looked at talking to some doctors when I need to potentially have surgery, and I decided hey, let's check out QC Kinetics. I go in there and they look at the knee. Hey, here's the program that we can put you through.
That treatment takes your body's own healing properties and concentrates them at the root of the pain. No surgery or downtime.
The best part was there's no recovery until one day I felt like, hey, this feels like my old self again. I feel better. It's helped me. It's helped my dad. Hopefully it will help you in the same way. My message to them is do not wait. So you can go out and play golf and do the things that you love and enjoy.
Take it from Bobby Carpenter. Call QC Kinetics now for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955. 312-809-5955.
Have you seen our energy bill? You'd think Elon used our furnace to power his rocket ships.
Very funny, babe. That furnace is 20 years old and probably hasn't been cleaned in 10.
I'll have Air Right Heating and Cooling check it out. They've seen it all. Plus, there's still time to take advantage of federal rebates. They even give AM 560 listeners $56 off any service.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at air-rite.com. That's air-rite.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling, doing it right since 1959.
You can hear this today at PreggerTopia.com.
This is an article in The Guardian. Religious children are meaner than their secular counterparts. So now, who did they study? They studied 1,200 children. 43% of them were Muslim, and 24% were Christian, and 27% were not religious.
Hear the entire episode. It's for Preggertopia members only. Go to PreggerTopia.com.
All of us need to be prepared to defend ourselves and our families, and we need to start with the less lethal option to avoid the legal complications associated with firearms. Byrna has their less lethal pistol launcher. It is equipped with tear gas and kinetic ammunition. It is designed to incapacitate any attacker for up to 40 minutes. Go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity. Right now, you'll get 10% off. Let me tell you this Byrna story. Bob was at home. An intruder physically forced his way inside. Now, luckily, Bob had just received his Byrna 4 days prior to this incident, and he used it to get the man outside and off of his property. Byrna, it's legal in all 50 states. There's no background check needed. It can be shipped directly to your door. Now, see the powerful technology that is Byrna. Go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity. Right now, you'll get 10% off. That's byrna.com/Hannity today.
AM 560, The Answer.
Workshopping a new segment.
Okay.
Where weekly, at least weekly, and there's so much of it, maybe we'll have to do it more than once a week. Essentially the dumbest thing you've heard all week, or you will hear all week. We call it, Do You Hear Yourself?
Do you hear yourself?
You remember?
Yeah, with J.D. Vance with Martha Raddatz. Do you hear yourself? You're saying there's only 2 apartment complexes taken over by Tren de Agua?
This inaugural edition of Do You Hear Yourself, without all the pomp and circumstance, we'll have to dress it up a bit.
All right. And we got to get Justin to do a song, though, a theme song.
Yes. Comes to us from The View. That's that show with the panel of man-hating shrews. The View's Sonny Hostin. Sonny Hostin on voter ID.
Do you hear yourself?
People don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where where black people had to prove their right to vote, and oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or on your driver's license. So really the bottom line is voter suppression. And I agree with him 100%. It's a brilliant notion that less voter ID laws allows more people to vote. And most democracies do it that way. We're the only ones that really don't do it that way.
Right. I mean,
so as a woman, I'm so stupid I can't get an ID to go into a federal building.
It's amazing how many black Americans and female Americans are able to vote and overcome these odds that Sonny Hostin's talking about. That's the inaugural edition of...
Do you hear yourself?
Thank you.
Coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
At 6:36, it's getting bad again, says Pilsen man, shot in trying to be a good Samaritan. It's getting bad again. 6:36.
And if you were arrested on January 6th at the Capitol, no job for you in Chicago. But now let's head into the newsroom. Here is Nikki Whaley.
Good morning. It's 38 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. House Speaker Mike Johnson scrapped last night's expected vote on President Trump's budget bill. The measure, which already passed in the Senate, calls for tax cuts, an increase in immigration enforcement and spending on defense, and a raise in the debt limit. The House planned for a Wednesday night vote but faced opposition from a number of Republicans, which pushed the vote back to later today at the earliest. Several hardline conservatives have spoken out against the Senate's plan due to there being only $4 billion in spending cuts, whereas the House's version would make up to $2 trillion in cuts. Chicago aldermen are moving forward with an ordinance that would ban anyone convicted of participating in January 6th at the U.S. Capitol from working for the city. The measure advanced yesterday by the City Council Workforce Development Committee. It's scheduled to be voted on by the full City Council next Wednesday. News is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. What if you could save on average 90% for dental implants and get 100% of your small back with the Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO or FEP is possible? Check if you qualify at almostfreeteeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
President Trump's tariff policies have turned the stock market into a roller coaster.
Across the board, all of the different sectors are down.
Reciprocal tariffs are also being lowered during that period. U.S. stocks surged on the news.
Don't know how long these tariffs are going to be in place.
Chaos that is being created as all U.S. trading partners are hit.
The American public is invested in some way in the market.
Stay on top of where the markets are headed next, right here on AM 560. The Answer.
This Easter, treat your family to a day they'll never forget with brunch at the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. Brunch reservations are available now for Easter Sunday, April 20th, with seatings from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom. Experience an exquisite meal in a buffet style, feast at the decadent carving, crepes, and dessert stations. Enjoy family entertainment, complimentary beer and wine, and a visit from the Easter Bunny for memorable photos, plus an egg hunt and interactive train rides for the kids. There's no better place to celebrate Easter Sunday than as guests of Trump Chicago, where you'll find the most iconic views of the Chicago skyline. Brunch reservations are available now for Easter Sunday, April 20th, with seatings from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom. Delight in this one-of-a-kind extravaganza. Make your reservations today by visiting eventbrite.com and search Easter Brunch, Trump Chicago. That's Eventbrite and search Easter Brunch, Trump Chicago, and order your tickets today. Once again, that's eventbrite.com and search Easter Brunch, Trump Chicago. Happy Easter.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Steel, walk behind, zero turn, and stand on mowers are built to get the job done. Shop online or at your local Steel dealer. Steel, let's go mow.
Taking a look at the roadways, the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 17 minutes, outbound 14 minutes. The Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Byrne interchange, 16 minutes, outbound about 20 minutes. On the Eisenhower, this is inbound from Wolf to the old post office, 21 minutes, outbound about 16 minutes. That's going to be due to an accident on the right shoulder, outbound at Independence Boulevard. This report is sponsored by Robert Half. At Robert Half, they found that 67% of companies want to increase contract talent. That's why their recruiters' expertise and award-winning AI work quickly to find the skilled candidates you want. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com/talent today. From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The disconnect between what the politicians tell you and what people who actually live in neighborhoods like Pilsen tell you, per their experience. Good guy with a gun story.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to dingbat with a gun in L.A. Did you see that story about the wife of Weezer's bassist?
Yeah, she got shot by police, but she was attempted murder. They responded. What happened exactly?
There was a hit and run, and police were searching for the assailants, and California Highway Patrol asks LAPD to help with the search, and they're going through backyards, and she's in her backyard with a gun, and which is, maybe she heard a commotion or whatever, but so that's okay right up until she points a gun at police. They tell her to drop the gun, and she doesn't. Then it's not okay. So anyway, that's not the Pilsen story.
No, that's not. But that's a very interesting story regardless. Yes.
Yeah, well, so we'll see what happens in L.A. But the Pilsen story is a story about a 66-year-old David Villalobos, who was attempting to be a good Samaritan when he came home and saw a guy getting carjacked.
It was a superficial wound, but it went in and out, and I thank God for that.
David
I'm thinking about going home with seeing my
bullet.
wife, my grandkids, That's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking about shooting the guy. I was very hesitant to do so.
Mm-hmm. So he got winged in the leg in the exchange. But, he said getting bad again out here. Another resident who declined to be law-abiding.
Right. They all show their hands or their feet when they interview them all the time. It's every night.
Tells you something else about how law-abiding residents feel in neighborhoods like Pilsen.
Just get angry, upset, obviously. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to live amongst that. But unfortunately, that's the city we live in.
Unfortunately, that's the city we live in. It's getting bad again.
How many times have you heard that? Sorry for interrupting. I mean, honestly, if we had a drinking game, we'd all be hammered and on the floor.
But you hear from the politicians, state and local, we know what we're doing. It's working. We just need to keep doing more of it. Okay. Someone else who testified to what the city actually is, where she lives and what she sees. And also, she's married to a retired Chicago police officer. Danielle Carter Walters is part of that Chicago Flips Red group. Which basically, you've probably seen them. Black residents of Chicago show up to city council meetings and excoriate Brandon Johnson and
awesome.
And the city council, and are out in the streets protesting against the sanctuary city that is Chicago and sanctuary cities in general. Well, she was Danielle Carter Walters, to testify before a House subcommittee on the topic. And here's what she had to say in pertinent part.
ShotSpotter, a life-saving gunshot detection tool, is gone. Hyde Park now bears a permanent 720-bed shelter as illegal alien shelters multiply all over our city. Tax increment financing, known as TIF, meant to revive struggling areas, are being embezzled. Our kids aren't learning to read, while the city teachers cater to non-English speakers. These are deliberate acts of neglect, justified by Chicago's sanctuary city status. Lori Lightfoot licked the fuse with executive orders, and D.E.I. Johnson poured gasoline on the fire. Field houses has been taken. Police stations overrun with illegal aliens in tents and are on the floors, leaving officers demoralized. My husband, a retired CPD officer, saw it all. Violence, disease, measles and tuberculosis outbreak, prostitution, and bed bugs that reached our home. Since 2025, over 51,000 illegal aliens have flooded into Chicago. The city's answer? Blend migrant and homeless shelters under the One System initiative and hope no one noticed. Homelessness has jumped by 207% as 2,100 beds go to illegal aliens.
Do you think Chicago Flips Red is a real thing? Like there's actually significant movement other than a handful or a couple of handfuls of legitimately concerned Chicago residents?
At first I thought they were a paid for and sponsored group, but I can't find any information if that is true, but they do show, they are loyal and they do show up at every single council meeting. They show up in Washington when they're called upon to testify on whatever issue it is. But she's their leader of their group, correct, Danielle?
I guess one of them.
Yeah.
It's commentary you've heard before on this show, so it's nice to get it repeated back to us from places we don't often hear it. But does that mean there's real revolt afoot among not just black residents, but among residents of Chicago generally? Maybe specifically black residents, because this is a group of black residents. Chicago Flips Red. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Here's a little bit more commentary from Miss Carter Walters.
My husband and I are tax-paying business owners. We did everything right. We invested in the Opportunity Zone. Thank you, President Trump. Applied for grants, and we were denied. Yet 140,000 illegal alien-run businesses were funded without question. Law-abiding citizens are being replaced to serve a political machine. MS-13, Trendy Agua, they're here. Their graffiti marks our neighborhoods. New gangs, the Venezuelan Disciple, is forming in our neighborhoods. One shelter gets 20 to 30 police calls daily. Drug use, harassment, loitering, and violence have turned parks, sidewalks, and porches into no-go zones. This isn't immigration. This is an invasion. Sanctuary cities do not protect us. They abandon us.
That was a good riff there.
That was really good.
Yeah, although she said replacing law-abiding citizens, that sounds like she's a white supremacist, and she's promoting the great replacement theory. Oh, heavens.
And it wasn't an invasion if we invited them here, as you always say, Dan.
It's true, but I take the point. It's invasion sponsored by your state and local and federal governments. But that's how it happened.
And they put all the illegals in the black neighborhoods first. They did that, and then they came up north to Lakeshore Drive and Irving Park Road and placed 600 people there, and on it goes. They're putting them first over Chicago citizens.
Well, that's the overriding point of the Chicago Flips Red, which is a salient one, and I'm glad that she's speaking out, and she and others have formed this group. You got to walk before you run. I get that all. I just don't want to overstate what I think is happening in Chicago, because think about Chicago Flips Red, and then think about what you saw with the anti-Trump Musk protests this week in Chicago.
30,000 plus people were there.
Yeah. Now again,
what did they accomplish? I don't know, but they were there, Dan, because they were upset.
Again, the other side is more organized. They have this professional cadre of grievance makers that are down and probably paid, a lot of them, to agitate in whichever direction. So I discount some of that too. I think most of Chicago, like most of Illinois, is basically just numb and listless and just sort of, I don't know, meandering about aimlessly, at least politically. I don't think they're motivated in any particular direction, but you have to be motivated in a direction of change if that is going to occur, is my point. And I see some new people being motivated into activism, like this Chicago Flips Red, but I don't see anything resembling, even approaching critical mass that would suggest a completely new path is being contemplated by a great swath of the Chicago or Illinois electorate, which is actually what's required.
Well, and then you think about our aldermen, they're not concentrating on crime or higher property taxes. Yesterday, they passed a measure out of committee, the City Council Workforce Department Committee, Dan, that is going to make it, you cannot hire any person for a city job who took part in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who's
and it's going to go to a full city council vote April 16th next week.
Whatever. I mean, it's like who's trying to work for the city of Chicago other than communists or blacks, because Brandon Johnson's a race hustler, or black communists. I mean, really, who's going to get hired anyway?
Who's going to even apply? Speaking of Mayor Johnson, by the way, remember how he was going door to door in St. Louis to help reelect Mayor Jones? Yeah, she lost. She received 36% of the vote, and the new mayor doubled her vote totals.
Yeah, probably foreshadowing for his reelection in 2027.
Doesn't have the political power he thought he had.
On the Sanctuary City deal, again, Miss Carter Walters is more correct than she may even realize. These Doge numbers, non-citizen Social Security numbers issued over the past 4 years. 200 round numbers, 270,000 in 21, 590,000 in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, 2.1 million in 2024. So in Biden's 4 years, you're talking about 3.5 million non-citizen Social Security numbers that were issued to essentially embed people in this country illegally, in perpetuity, because the point here is to say, let's give them Social Security numbers so that they can work pending the adjudication of their cases, which we know will be years. And then when it comes time for an adjudication of anybody's case, you say what? This person has been working in this country legally and has been an asset to America, and so we have to allow him or her to stay forever. This is the way they run the scam. Embed them, give them the opportunity to work, have them prove. I mean, it's great that they prove up and they work and they're otherwise law-abiding in most of these cases. That's all well and good, but that is a dishonest way to run the system. It is running a scam on people like Miss Carter Walters, as she was detailing. 3.5 million just over the last 4 years, in addition to all of the ne'er-do-wells and dependents and people who don't intend to do America good. It really can't be overstated what the Biden administration and what this open borders left, these revolutionary cultural Marxists have done to this country, what Trump and his team is trying to unwind. Ron, Southside.
Hey, good morning, Dan and Nate. Dan, I do want to agree with you. I don't want to be too optimistic, but I like to see, and certainly before you get people to change their behavior, you have to get facts and information out. But when I look at this last CPS budget that was passed, I mean, but come on. So, I like what I see, like what I hear, but I'm just I guess I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. But I will ask you, certainly we got a little while before the mayoral election, but I mean, in terms of some actions, some outcomes from this, what could we possibly look for so we could, maybe remain optimistic? So that's
Yeah, thanks for the call, Ron. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, what are the results? Well, I mean, the best way to measure how you're doing is to look at what happens in elections. And so I guess that's what I would say to Chicago Flips Red and anybody else is Chicago Flips Red gets involved to support this candidate or that candidate in, say, state legislative races in the city come the primary in the general election next year. And let's see how they do. Let's see if they have an impact. I mean, and it's not all on them, but, let's see what kind of impact they have. Once you start flipping seats, either in a primary or, I mean, if they were able to flip a seat red in Chicago, holy cow,
huge.
then we really got something going. But maybe you flip a seat in a primary, you take out an incumbent with somebody that's a little bit more enlightened, even if they're identifying as a Democrat. So I guess that would be like how you translate the activism at the city council or testimony before a House subcommittee into local results. That's really ultimately the only way to measure it, because you have to change out the political leadership if you want to change the political climate. Andy in Dallas, Texas.
Hey, good morning. These northern cities can commit cultural and financial suicide to their heart's content. But, the thing was, there used to be a counterweight in Chicago called the collar counties and the ring suburbs of Cook County that acted in, to balance this whole crazy situation out. But these suburbs all flipped blue, mostly due to the wives of these male impersonators, like you like to call them. And now I just don't see a place where this comes back. I hear these guys all the time. I hear them in the locker room at the Union League Club, these saggy old farts, who are complaining about, Trump and, how wonderful the city is. And then they run off to their suburban homes. And then the other thing is these people who voted for all this, which of course and then decamped to Southwest Florida, and they ran away. And they still sing the praises of Chicago, but they never go into Chicago, and they run away to Florida.
Well, thanks for the call, Andy. I mean, it's a great point. I will let you know that they are not welcome in Southwest Florida. We have a strong conservative contingent from the Midwest, not just Illinois, that are keeping watch. I mean, they can go to the East Coast if they want, but not Southwest Florida. But no, I mean, the larger point about what's left and the hypocrisy of these male impersonators and the harridans that run their households is, it's indisputable. As I said, just the same measurement. Look at the election results. Look what the suburbs look like and who represents them at the state legislative level, at the congressional level. It would be a rank embarrassment if there was any common sense afoot in those wealthy enclaves in particular. And there's very little, clearly. By the way, just in terms of the crime situation, too, since the Pilsen shooting, Good Samaritan, and what Miss Carter-Walter said. So now we finally have some acknowledgement of what anybody knew to be true, which is that the electronic monitoring situation in Cook County is a mess. We knew it was under DART. Now the Cook County State's Attorney is, whatever her name is, Madigan, Burke, Cullerton.
Eileen Burke.
Yeah. So now she doesn't want to own it. So putting it on
Chief Evans.
Yeah, Tim Evans, Chief Judge. And then there's this too: the sentences. Talk more about these judges and what the prosecutor. I don't know what the prosecutors asked for and so forth, but that relatively high-profile case, because it was so horrific, of the flight attendant who was hit in the back of the head with a log.
Right, from a Christmas decoration at the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue.
Right. So this
Broad
guy,
daylight.
so this is years ago, and the guy who hit her, and by the way, 23-year-old enjoying a layover with a coworker. This was back in 2023, November. She was unresponsive for days. The attack occurred in front of the Burberry in North Michigan, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Significant head and brain injuries, and we've never gotten any updates in terms of her condition or recovery. but it was bad, as significant head and brain injuries would so indicate.
She was unconscious for days. But then, I mean, I've called, too, and I've asked, and they will not tell me, like, well, what's the victim's name? Like, I don't know. All you kept saying was that she's a 23-year-old flight attendant.
The guy who did this...
He's crazy.
Pled guilty to aggravated battery. He got a 5-year sentence. He'll likely be paroled in 13 months.
Oh, come on. He cannot be out on the streets. He has so many priors, too.
Oh, he's going to be. Dan and Amy, Chicago's Morning Answer.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
It's official. Newsmax has become a news giant. It's even listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Over 40 million Americans regularly turn to Newsmax for the news they need to know. They're tuning into the Newsmax channel on all major cable systems. They watch Newsmax 2 on all streaming platforms. They go online to Newsmax.com for breaking headlines. Millions more have downloaded the free Newsmax app on their smartphone and home TV. Reuters says Newsmax is one of the top news brands in America. Even President Trump says Newsmax is terrific, and he's watching. Tens of millions of Americans like you have made the switch to Newsmax for the news they can trust. So make the switch today. You won't ever look back.
Filet mignon isn't as cheap as chopped steak. But while they last, you can buy high-end Beautyrest Black and Sealy Posturepedic mattresses for nowhere near high-end prices. Hasseless Mattress is clearing out a handful of premium floor models, like a Beautyrest Black LX Hybrid was $3,599, but now it's just $971. Only a few remain, and they will sell out. Find your employee-free Chicagoland showroom at Hasseless.com.
Are you looking for a church with vibrant contemporary worship and solid biblical preaching? A place that feels like home and people who genuinely care? Check out Anchor Church Payless this Sunday. Services are at 9 and 11 on site or online at anchorpayless.org. We're currently going through the Gospel of Mark, verse by verse. We offer Christ-centered ministries to kids and teens, and we have groups for men, women, and couples, young and old. And don't miss our special Good Friday event, The Living Last Supper, where we bring the famous Leonardo da Vinci painting to life on stage. The event starts at 7 p.m. on Good Friday. Whether you've been walking with Christ for years or are ready for a fresh start, we look forward to seeing you this weekend at Anchor Church. Find us on Facebook or visit us at anchorpayless.org today.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
7, we mentioned his book last week talking about the importance of fatherhood. We'll talk to Adam Coleman, the author of The Children We Left Behind, 7:07.
Today we're going to have another cold one, but be patient. Warmer weather is on the way. A high today of 45 degrees. It is now 7 a.m. WIND Chicago.
Europe stands down. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The European Union's just paused its retaliatory tariffs on American exports for the same 90 days President Trump paused reciprocal tariffs worldwide after days of stock market turmoil. Top White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett just told Fox.
He made, I think, the absolutely right, decisive call to go with really the bigger move rather than announce one or two trade deals. But go with the bigger move so that everybody in the world understands that he means what he says.
Well, Hassett says many countries are negotiating deals. Not China, though. The president increased the tariffs on imports from there to 125%. Now, on Wall Street, stocks could drop again after that big market rebound. Dow futures falling about 500 points the day after gaining the Dow nearly 3,000. The Nasdaq surged 12%, its second biggest day ever. An American who was jailed in Russia is now flying back home. Ksenia Karolina was set free in a prisoner swap. Karolina, a dual U.S.-Russian citizen, was convicted of treason, and her crime donating $51 to a charity for Ukraine while she was in the U.S., arrested for that when she returned to Russia to visit family.
The Wall Street Journal reports that in return, the U.S. has released Arthur Petrov. He's a German-Russian dual citizen who was arrested in Cyprus in 2023. United States law enforcement wanted him over an alleged scheme to supply the Russian military with microelectronics.
That's Fox's Jonathan Savage. The House may vote today if Republicans can unite. On the budget blueprint, the Senate passed funding the president's agenda, but Fox's Brooke Singman reports.
House Speaker Mike Johnson tried to bring the bill to a vote last night, but did not have enough support from GOP lawmakers after a lengthy meeting with holdouts who couldn't reach an agreement. The vote was then canceled, but Johnson says he remains optimistic.
For all those in the media who doubt us, you continue to doubt us, and we continue to deliver, and we will again.
Some conservatives are demanding bigger spending cuts. They keep finding more bodies in the rubble of the nightclub roof collapse disaster in the Dominican Republic. The number of deaths, 218. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 39 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. The head of the European Commission is welcoming President Trump's pause on his global tariffs.
Ursula von der Leyen says Europe remains ready for talks, but only under fair and predictable conditions. The shift comes after the EU announced tariffs on $24 billion worth of U.S. goods. The White House says the extra import taxes for Europe are on hold as the EU's countermeasures have not come into effect yet. They are scheduled to be collected from April 15th. The EU will still be subject to the U.S. 10% base rate tariff that came into force on April 5th. Pablo Gutierrez, Brussels.
A Chicago City Council member wants to crack down on predatory tow trucks. 36th Ward Alderman Gilbert Villegas is proposing an ordinance that gives drivers the right to sue illegal tow truck businesses. The legislation requires tow trucks to get city licenses and bans them from pulling up to crash sites to solicit business. The measure passed unanimously yesterday in the License and Consumer Protection Committee. It will be considered by the full City Council next week. News is a service of Valdecast Windows. For the discerning homeowner looking for high-quality and professional-level window replacement service, contact Valdecast Windows. Your award-winning Platinum Elite Pella certified contractor. Visit Valdecast.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
For nearly a decade, AM 560 has marked the start of summer with a night of cigar smoking and great conversation. And this year, we've expanded Cigar Night to 2 nights. Wednesday, May 21st at Gobert's Farm in Pingree Grove, and Thursday, May 22nd at Gaelic Park in Oak Forest, featuring the great Larry Elder, along with AM 560's Dan Proft and Sean Thompson. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. Sponsored by Liberty Cigar Company.
Honey, we're not moving, but we gotta do something about this kitchen.
Funny you mention it. I just stopped by Forever Remodeling's new showroom in Niles. I saw over a dozen kitchen and bathroom layouts they designed. They even offered to stop by the house and give us a free in-home design consultation.
What'd you tell them?
That we're free today?
Visit foreverremodeling.com today. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com. Forever Remodeling, stress-free and high-quality remodeling.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money? A bigger house? Maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How you wake up each day? How you sleep? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or even eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. So give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. And it just takes a phone call, 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Wherever you're hurting, in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF.
They took everything. Our equipment, our supplies, it's all gone.
It's devastating. Every order is going to be delayed for months, and our customers are going to find someone else.
I don't know if we'll ever recover from this. We're already getting calls from clients checking on their orders.
Who knows how long it will take to get back on our feet? What were we thinking not upgrading our security?
Don't let a break-in devastate your business. Protect yourself with Goldilocks. They'll create a customized security solution for you. From commercial doors with keyless entry to 24/7 alarm monitoring, they have you covered. Learn more at GoldilocksInc.com and have a security technician conduct an on-site assessment of your business. Plus, AM 560 listeners get their first 3 months of monitoring free with a new install. Call Goldilocks now. 708-889-5600. That's 708-889-5600. Goldilocks, Chicagoland's premier locksmith doors and security systems company since 1981.
Taking another look at the roadways, the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 22 minutes outbound. It's about 14 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn interchange, 23 minutes outbound. It's about 30 minutes. On the Eisenhower, inbound from Wolf to the old post office, 31 minutes, outbound 25 minutes. On the Stevenson, inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 36 minutes, outbound, it's about 21 minutes. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. No waiting, no problems, no charge for in-store verbal appraisals. Bring your gold or silver in today, foxvalleycoins.com. From the Team Hawkburg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Love the name of our next guest publishing company, Wrong Speak.
That's awesome.
Perfect for our times. Adam Coleman's Wrong Speak includes some very straight talk on parenting. We talked about his op-ed in your post last week, and by extension his book. Among other things, he says, becoming an adult used to include the understanding that you're no longer a child. But now that it means adults are allowed to rotate between adulthood and childhood whenever they see fit, constantly making a child's excuses for an adult's poor decisions. And some tough questions for mom and dad if mom and or dad left, if mom and dad split up. And he concludes in part by saying, here is what is lost today when it comes to family formation and parenting. The single most important duty of parents is the preparedness to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of their children. That includes sacrificing their pride. Abandoned children like me are constantly faced with an unfair choice of either saving their sanity or saving their relationships, afraid to wound the pride of the mother or father who left them. For more on the topic, please be joined by Adam Coleman, author and founder of Wrong Speak Publishing. His book, The Children We Left Behind, How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. Adam, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
First, just your backstory in your own words to sort of frame, what you've considered, what you've gone through, but then, reflecting back on it now as a father yourself, I think is, that trajectory is interesting.
Yeah, my backstory as a child, I grew up single-parent home. My mother was raising myself and my sister. My father was always married, but to someone else. So he wasn't really in our lives. And once, especially, I was born in Detroit. When we left Detroit, I really didn't see him that much. I rarely heard from him, maybe one call a year or something like that. Very brief phone call. Essentially, my father was a stranger to me. And what I realized once I had my son at the age of 21 was that I didn't want to be my father. And so I became very vigilant as to what I did, how I treated my son, and ultimately tried to become the father that I would have wanted when I was a kid. And now today my son is 19. He's great. No issues. He's thriving because of my involvement.
And, like sort of that progression, not knowing your father, and then when it clicked that you wanted to do things very differently than your father did. I mean, did it just sort of all come rushing in when you knew you were going to have a son, or was this something you were grappling with as you were growing up in your formative years?
I think it was when my son was born. It was a very conscious thought I had the day I was holding my son for the first time. Now, it's one thing to say you want to be an active father, but when you're a child who doesn't have a father, you don't have a blueprint. You end up taking from different areas and trying to figure out what's the best way forward. For the child who has both their parents, but especially a young man has his father in his home, he gets to see it every day. So it's not a foreign concept, as to how you treat your child. Assuming that your father is a relatively healthy person, you want to mimic what your father did. So for me, it was more of a struggle to figure out, yes, I want to be a good father, but how do you be a good father? How do you be a father in general? And also struggling with, how do I be a man? Because I didn't have someone to teach me how to be a man. So much of my younger adult years, was the struggle between the two.
Now,
what about mom, your son's mom?
We never got married, but we always co-parented. We always had a good relationship. Stayed active with my son. He primarily lived with his mother, but I saw him every single week. So we always had a good relationship. She ended up getting married to somebody else. But yeah, we always had a good co-parenting situation.
Are you still estranged from your father? Did you talk to him ever?
The last time I talked, so just so people know, I'm 40 years old now. The last time I talked to my father, I was 21. The last time I saw my father, I was 16. And the last time I talked to my father, I called him, and it was like I was bothering him. So I never attempted to call him, but I also opened the door, or left the door open, in case he wanted to reach out to me, he could. But my father actually died some years ago, so that never happened. And I found out that he died about 3 months after he did, because my mom Googled his name and found the funeral home where he went to.
So he never had any relationship with his grandson then?
Correct. And actually, that was part of the reason why I called him, because I wanted to tell him he had a grandson. But, just in a matter of a minute, I figured it sounded like I was bothering him, and he wasn't really interested. So I never even made it that far.
Some of these questions that you posited in your op-ed, why did your mother choose an obviously flawed man to be your father? Well, she was in love, accepted, and shut up. That's the response you say society gives. Why did your father not fight for his involvement in your life? Well, it was hard to achieve at the time, so he gave up, accepted, and move on. The accepted and move on, accepted and shut up that society responds with, you say generally, is not something that people should accept.
Yes. I accept that my parents are flawed. I love my mother, but she's flawed, just like I'm flawed. I wasn't a perfect parent either, but I tried my best. But if someone came to me and said, hey, you made a mistake here, I acknowledge it. I'm accountable for it. But we kind of have an unaccountable culture when it comes to parents. You get the reflex, well, there is no parenting guide, right? And just acting defensive. And yes, if you make poor choices, you should acknowledge it. And the reason being is, if you see someone that is making a similar poor choice or going towards the direction, and you learn that lesson, you're more likely to stop them from doing it. But what's happening is, well, if you're not accountable, you're not going to hold the next person accountable either, because you're basically calling out yourself if you see someone doing the same thing. So that's how we get single parenthood culture, where we applaud single parenthood and we ignore the strife of being a single parent, because no one wants to acknowledge that this is not the best strategy for raising children.
Right. I mean, it's It's interesting you say that because when we were talking about your op-ed on an earlier show, look, the data on this is overwhelming. I mean, it's not just about data, and we know some single parents do a heroic job and so forth. That's all stipulated. But the data in terms of the higher incidence of bad outcomes is irrefutable, and there's a ton of it. So it's not really in question, and nobody's sort of castigating anybody. You were just talking about best environment to raise kids, because remember, it's about them. And that's what I was struck by in your op-ed, because it seems to me that you're on that track too. And we've had these sort of fits and starts to have this conversation as the illegitimacy rate across the board, all races, has spiked over the last 40 years. But it's, it's always, Barack Obama says something about fatherhood, then it recedes. I mean, Bill Cosby, before he self-immolated, just said something about fatherhood, then it receded. Other people just generally talking about it, again, not specific to the black community, but just across the board, the problem of broken homes, as they used to be called. And maybe we're at a moment now where we have another start, and we'll see if it's just a fit.
Yeah, and just to go back to what you were originally saying, when it comes to criticizing single parenthood, like you said, the data is there. So it's not about the data. What it becomes is about the feelings. And it's a lot easier to make a point when you're the victim of something, but when you're disconnected from it, right? When you're some statistician who had both his parents and went to some prominent school, pointing out some stats, it doesn't land with people, and they see it as you criticizing them from up above. But when you're someone like myself who's a victim of a circumstance, who is pointing this out, which is rare because everyone's afraid of offending one of their parents or both of their parents for pointing out an obvious flaw. So I think that's why I wanted to use my story. It's not to tell a memoir, but it's to use it as an example of this is what can happen. The years of struggle. Yeah, I didn't go to jail. I didn't get involved in crime or anything like that, or drugs. But
you went through depression. I mean, depression is
Right.
personal jail, and how long did that take to get out of depression?
I mean, decades for me. Suicidal ideation starting from a very young age, being admitted into a mental hospital at the age of 8. Like, this is the real life struggle that I had. And this stems from a chaotic childhood, uncertainty, financial uncertainty, housing insecurity, being homeless a couple times when I was a kid. That's where all this comes from. The single parenthood contributed to it.
How, with combating that depression, and how did you pull out of it?
I would say, one, my son, because there is something greater than me, and I needed to fix these things. So I was constantly trying to find small ways to improve myself. Therapy was a really big thing. I went to therapy a couple times for different reasons, but the first time I really went to therapy as an adult, I realized how much I was holding on, and how many things that I never resolved. I just kind of hid it. And even with talking about going to the mental hospital at the age of 8, I completely blocked that out until my sister one day brought it up. And all of those uncomfortable memories, all those visions of being there came back to me. So, there's a lot to resolve by just actually talking about it and not pretending it doesn't bother you.
How did you make your way through school, particularly with some of those challenges you just described?
School was sort of difficult, especially when I entered high school. I believe I had dyslexia, but no one noticed. At one point, if I was to read out loud, I was literate, but if I was to read out loud, it sounded like I didn't know how to read, and people thought I was joking. And I struggled studying. So there were a lot of little struggles here, but because of it, the last 3 years of my high school years, I didn't pass. I had to go to summer school, and that also included my last year. So I never walked with my class. I had to take a summer course to graduate. And it's not a testament to my lack of intelligence or anything. I was just struggling, and I was also struggling with self-esteem too. And no one in my school, granted I went to a public school, but no one within my public school noticed that I was actually struggling. They just pushed me along.
So how did it turn? I mean, I haven't read your book yet, but I read the op-ed clearly, and I mean it's very well written. So something turned at some point where you figured it out.
I would say I really figured it out in my early 30s. I ended up going to tech school, built an IT career, but in my early 30s, I started solo traveling, and I accidentally kind of got over my anxiety because when you go to a foreign country, everything is foreign to you. It's like, diving into the deep end, not knowing how to swim. So you just kind of figure it out. And by doing that, my life started to really improve because that anxiety was the biggest thing that was holding me back. And that was like the start of getting over my anxiety, my depression. My career started to take off. And I really started to be introspective about my life and how I'm moving. And then my son started getting older. He started getting towards his teenage years. And I really saw how important I was. Obviously, I knew, but it's like right in your face when your son is starting to become a man and he's doing your mannerisms and he looks like you and he's looking up to you. So I think both of those were very prominent reasons.
And I can only imagine the reactions to your op-ed and to the book. You've got to be hearing from a lot of people that went through similar things.
Yeah, I've been talking about this topic for some time. The book is a culmination of many of conversations, or the reason why I started writing it was because of all these conversations. I've talked to fathers recently who have messed up and they want to get back in their children's lives. And I'm encouraging them to not give up. Every kid wants to have a relationship with their parents. But I've also had a really heartwarming conversation with my mother because she didn't know I was writing all this. I didn't want her feelings beforehand to stop me from being honest. So we had really honest conversations. So I feel even closer to my mother because of it. Because there were a lot of things that she didn't know.
Really interesting. Adam Coleman, the author and founder of Wrong Speak Publishing, his book, The Children We Left Behind, How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Grit Regional Manager sought by Nexamp Incorporated to lead regional grid integration team, manage workloads, set priorities, and ensure team is aligned with Nexamp's strategic goals. Requirements are a master's in electrical engineering or related, plus 2 years experience, 1.5 years experience in DER interconnection, domestic travel up to 20%, a flexible schedule in office, and may work remotely within commuting distance to the Chicago office 2 to 3 days per week. Salary is $155,800.06 to $182,000 per year. Benefits include a 401k, health, dental, vision insurance, paid time off, commuter benefits, cell phone reimbursement. Please email your cover letter and resume to recruitment@nexamp.com with attention Nexamp 2024 in the subject line. 101 North Wacker Drive, Suite 200, Chicago, Illinois 60606. That's recruitment@nexamp.com with attention Nexamp 2024 in the subject line.
Reliability isn't optional when business security is on the line. It's essential. Businesses trust alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could save using one source for cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same-day or next-day service upon request because downtime isn't an option, dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, more than 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Chicagoland schools, their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com and schedule today. That's adsalarm.com. Alarm detection systems, the first choice of Chicagoland businesses, including AM 560 The Answer and Salem Media Chicago. Alarm detection systems, adsalarm.com. Alarm license 127000143.
You never want to miss one of life's most important moments. A graduation, a birthday, a first communion, a wedding. When these moments happen, you want to make sure to capture them so that you and your loved ones can remember them for years to come. For over 30 years, families have relied on Tom Kaloran Photography to capture important life moments. This locally owned family business can provide the solutions you need for your important event photography, from weddings and birthdays to class reunions and golf outings. No matter the size or scope, Tom Kaloran Photography will make sure you have lasting memories to share for years to come. Tom Kaloran Photography is also the official photographer for AM 560 The Answer. To learn more and to see their portfolio, just visit KaloranPhotography.com. That's KILLORAN photography.com. Or call them at 708-361-0025. Tom Kaloran Photography, capturing important life moments for over 30 years.
Warm weather is coming this weekend. Finally, we're going to get a taste of the upper 50s and low 60s. And what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be sitting on the couch again with chronic pain, thinking, well, maybe it'll go away if I take this pill or if I sit down? Not going to work. QC Kinetics is here to help you. They've already treated tens of thousands of patients around the country with regenerative treatments that help calm debilitating joint pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, back. If you have the pain, you know what I'm talking about. It's either from arthritis or from an injury. Don't live this way. With QC Kinetics, the science is solid. They give you your life back without surgery, without drugs, and without any downtime. Live a healthier life free of harmful meds as well. Curious to see if you're a candidate for these treatments? No problem. The consultation is free with appointments on Saturdays. So call now and find out how easy it is to get back to enjoying life without chronic joint pain. Now's the best time to get started. Call QC Kinetics. Here's the number, 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955. 312-809-5955.
Perhaps you're a collector, or perhaps all of a sudden you have a collection. Maybe it's an inheritance. How do you know what it's worth? This is Sean Thompson for Donley Auction. The market for antiques and collectibles is changing all the time. What is your collection worth right now? Well, I've got an easy way to find out. It's simple. You contact Donley Auctions. With their worldwide audience of live and in-person auctions, they have a good idea of how to tell you exactly what it's worth at exactly right now. They're ready to put top dollar in your pocket. The bigger the collection, the better. Go to DonleyAuctions.com and get the info on all things that they buy and sell to have an idea of exactly what Donley does and how much they need your collection. They have so many buyers, it's a great time to sell. Just simply make a phone call. Donley has traveled all over the country to pick up collections. Just call and talk to the people at Donley Auctions at 815-923-7000. Donley Auctions is your trusted partner in turning your collections into cash. DonleyAuctions.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, remember Alyssa Heinerscheid?
Oh, isn't she the Bud Light marketing director or something?
Yeah, who brought us Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah,
she
was so woke, and she was trying to expand from the frat boys or grow the base or something, and it backfired miserably. Why? What is she in charge of now?
Well, I'm a businesswoman.
Here's
I had a really clear job to
mission.
do when I took over Bud Light, and it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time, and if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. So I had this super clear mandate. It's like we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. And what I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. Mm-hmm. And representation is at sort of the heart of evolution. You've got to see people who reflect you in the work. And we had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of fratty, kind of out of touch humor. And it was really important that we had another approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she cratered Bud Light's brand, And now we find out
what? Oh, is
she
she
is
still
there? She is team business operations for Live Golf.
Oh no! How did that? No, I mean she singly destroyed a multi-billion-dollar corporation with a single ad, and she's got a new job at Live Golf.
So, I mean, it just when as if Greg Norman wasn't bad enough when he was running Live. This is
maybe he hired her.
But this is perfect. This is perfect. I want Harvard grad Alina Heinerschmidt, identitarian, Marxist, identitarian, ideologue, as you heard. I want her to go talk to MBS and the Saudi royal family about inclusivity and appealing to women and so forth. Please
go, honey. I'll buy you a ticket there.
Nothing better than an identitarian feminist working for the Saudi royal family.
What could go wrong, Dan?
A hypocrisy only a Harvard grad could countenance.
Oh, my God. All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Speaking of allegedly higher ed, I got to tell you, this might be my favorite part of Trump's first 100 days thus far, defunding the high and mighty universities, including my alma mater. We'll start there with Cornell law professor William Jacobson. His school's on the list, too. 737.
Is Iowa on the list? Just kidding. But now let's head into the newsroom. Here is Nikki Whaley.
Good morning. It's 39 degrees in Chicago and the AM 560. The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. GOP lawmakers want to limit the power federal judges have to order nationwide injunctions. The House of Representatives on Wednesday passed a bill, mostly along party lines, that would make it so judges can only provide orders that apply to the parties directly involved in a case. The move is a pushback to a series of injunctions against several of President Trump's executive actions. A Chicago man who pled guilty to attacking a woman on Mag Mile is going to prison. Bruce Diamond has been sentenced to 5 years behind bars. He's charged with aggravated battery causing great bodily harm. Prosecutors say Diamond threw a log at the victim and struck her in the head outside of a Burberry store in November of 2023. The woman was taken to the hospital in critical condition. News is a service of almostfreeteeth.com. What if you could save on average 90% for dental implants and get 100% of your smile back with the Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO or FEP? It's possible. Check if you qualify at almostfreeteeth.com. A check of the roadways coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Spring is in the air, and that means it's time to check the starting lineup. Leading off for AM 560 every morning at 5, it's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson, followed at 9 by Mike Gallagher. Moving up in the lineup, it's Charlie Kirk, now heard at 11. Then at 2, it's 2 full hours of Hugh Hewitt, followed by Sean Thompson at 4, Seculo at 7, and rounding out the lineup, Larry Elder at 8. Top to bottom, the best lineup in Chicago radio is right here on AM 560. The Answer.
All of us need to be prepared to defend ourselves and our families, and we need to start with the less lethal option to avoid the legal complications associated with firearms. Byrna has their less lethal pistol launcher. It is equipped with tear gas and kinetic ammunition. It is designed to incapacitate any attacker for up to 40 minutes. Go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity. Right now, you'll get 10% off. Let me tell you this Byrna story. Bob was at home. An intruder physically forced his way inside. Now, luckily, Bob had just received his Byrna 4 days prior to this incident, and he used it to get the man outside and off of his property. Byrna, it's legal in all 50 states. There's no background check needed. It can be shipped directly to your door. Now, see the powerful technology that is Byrna. Go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity. Right now, you'll get 10% off. That's byrna.com/Hannity today.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Xumo Play.
Chicagoland certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns discusses taxes in retirement.
Most people are paying more in taxes and keeping less of their money to live and do what they enjoy. That's why we've put out the retirement tax bill calculator online. You can see with your own eyes just how much you might be overpaying. It's a valuable tool, $500 value, but we made it free for you to view and run your own numbers at mvpcfp.com. That's mvpcfp.com.
To run your retirement tax bill calculator, go to mvpcfp.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC.
Stop feeling embarrassed about thinning hair and start looking and feeling your best with Hair Grow by New Nordic. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or at your local CVS.
Let's take another look at your drive. The Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 22 minutes outbound. It's about 14 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn interchange, 23 minutes outbound. It's about 30 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the old post office, 31 minutes outbound, 25 minutes. On the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 36 minutes outbound. It's about 21 minutes. This report is sponsored by Discover. Guess what? Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. From the Team Hawkberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Northwestern University in the news. Amy, you know what that means. The value of my degree will be declining. The Trump administration adding Cornell and Northwestern to its list of hold that spend. Reportedly freezing $790 million in federal funding to Northwestern and more than $1 billion to Cornell.
You know how Northwestern found out about it, too? The mainstream media. New York Times did an article, and that's how.
The money was frozen in connection with several ongoing credible and concerning Title VI investigations prohibiting discrimination in programs and activities that receive federal funding. This builds on previous announcements about $510 million in grant money to Brown, $9 billion to Harvard, Columbia, of course, which caved or sort of kind of caved. Princeton, last week, research grants totaling $210 million. Even these universities with big reputations and prodigious endowments, that's real money. Real money. Let's start there with our friend Professor William Jacobson, clinical professor of law and director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell, founder of LegalInsurrection.com and president of Legal Insurrection Foundation, as well as the Equal Protection Project. Professor Jacobson, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
I don't know if Cornell's going to be able to afford you anymore.
Get your resume ready.
My computer login still works.
That's good. That's a good sign.
Whether my swipe card works remains to be seen. This is, it's real money.
Well, I mean, and this is, we're talking about some of the high-profile universities, the sort of the status universities where there's been a lot of ugliness, and so they're easy to target. But I mean, there's 4 dozen universities on the list. In fact, Nikki Neely from Parents Defending Education just posted about filing a complaint against Indiana University for Title VI violations. And I know you've been in this business too as well. So this is much bigger than just the quote unquote elite universities.
Yeah, it's worse at the elite universities. They're the ones who get all the attention, but it goes beyond. At Equal Protection, we filed cases against many universities and who were not quote unquote elite, many large public universities, including in Illinois. And the problem of how you want to phrase it, kind of DEI infused reverse racism, DEI discrimination, which manifests itself in many different ways, is a problem throughout higher education. It's really been captured in many ways.
Well, and so the impact on this, because it's the response from universities has been rather muted, and perhaps that may surprise people. You would think that the professoriate and the administrators would be pushing back in a very public way and being very publicly critical. And instead, they've taken, for the most part, a rather subtle approach. They've been rather understated in trying to work with the Trump administration to avoid the loss of these funds. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's really strange how the universities have reacted. I think you're going to see a circling of the wagons. I think you're going to see people playing victim. And what they're not going to do is look inward and look at how they have become completely divorced from the population that funds them. And that's, I think, part of the problem at the administrative level.
But they're getting pressure. We've seen some, petitions circulating among the professor being critical of the administration, like we saw at Columbia. So then the administration is getting squeezed from both ends, from its professors, to some extent from its students as well as the Trump administration. And trying to walk that line must be difficult. But it seems to me that they're worried about things other than the Trump administration, frankly, and their professorate and their students, which is why they're deciding to play ball with Trump. And I think it has a lot to do with the endowments that confer status, as well as the limitations of making up that funding from their endowments.
Well, the endowments are not as open as people think. It's not just like you've got, $11 billion in the bank and you can just pull it out when you want. Most of that money is legally restricted. Mm-hmm. It's money that is governed under, IRS rules and other things like that when it's an endowment. And it's often restricted by the donor. So the donors donate the money to the endowment to be used for a particular purpose. And I'm not saying that they can't access some of it, but it's not like, a university. I think Cornell's got $11 billion or whatever the number is. They can't just write a check for $11 billion. They have to figure it out. Now, there are workarounds and there are ways they can access the funds, and they're allowed to use a percentage a year. But I think that's a little bit of a misconception to just say, hey, this is their endowment, and assume that that's free cash they can use.
Right. And being at Cornell, it does seem to me that part of the the air around some of these places is Harvard has a $50 billion endowment and Princeton has a $40 billion endowment, whatever the numbers are these days. But that's part of sort of the cachet of those places, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Again, I think the problem that a lot of people have is they see tons of money being spent on things that are not even related to the research that the universities are complaining about. In many ways, it's the reaction from Northwestern and Cornell and others. Oh, you're going to kill kids with cancer because you're going to cut back cancer research. And they're trying to hold us hostage to that sort of stuff. The reality is that federal funding, while it might go to a particular project, the universities grab a huge percentage to cover their general overhead. And that's one of the things Trump has been trying to cut back, which is being litigated now. That, Cornell, I believe the number is close to 60%, that if you get a grant at Cornell, the central administration, I believe, pulls between 50 and 60% of it to cover their own overhead. And so when we're giving them these money, it's not just to fund this professor's research lab. It ends up subsidizing the entire university. And then we look at what the entire university is doing, and we say, we don't want this. So that's the problem. The problem is that the universities don't use the funding just for the research. They use it for a lot of other purposes.
Right. A lot of that money is restricted, but a lot of money is also fungible, and as you're pointing out. Something else happening on campus, it's not just the high-profile Mahmoud Khalil case in Columbia. We have a story in Illinois that half a dozen University of Illinois Chicago, Northwestern, and University of Chicago students have had their student visas terminated. The details have not materialized as to why quite yet, but you assume it's going to be something similar to Khalil at Columbia because some of these undergrads are similarly oriented. And the claim continues to be this is an improper restriction of free speech, and this is not consistent with university values, with American values. What do you say in response to the free speech argument?
Well, a couple of things. First thing is if you're here on a student visa or even if you have a green card, you're subject to the immigration laws. And if the government has a ground under the immigration laws to remove you because you're advocating for a terrorist group or you're advocating violence or you're actually organizing violent action, that's grounds to remove you, not a free speech issue. The second one is that when you're taking over a building, when you're setting up blockades on campuses, when you're shouting down speakers, when you're intimidating other students and preventing them from getting their education, that's no longer free speech. So Mahmoud Khalil, to the best we can ascertain, because the government hasn't had to really put forward its evidence yet, the best we can ascertain, it's not just because he says, well, I support Palestinian rights, therefore you're being deported. It's that he was the leader of an organization that terrorized Columbia University to the extent that Jewish students were afraid to walk around with Jewish stars around their necks for fear of being harassed and intimidated. Whose organization declared that its goal was the destruction of Western civilization. If you're an American citizen, you know what? We got to put up with it. You're entitled to it. But if you're here as a guest, we don't have to put up with it, and we shouldn't have to put up with it. And organizing violent takeovers of buildings and organizing that sort of campus harassment campaign is not a free speech question.
Yeah, but what if you're not involved in political protests and you're simply playing basketball? You're a center at Duke University, and the night of the championship game, to get into the championship, the Final Four, the center there found out that he possibly faces deportation because the Trump administration announced new visa policies.
Well, I'm not familiar with the details of that case. I've seen the headlines. I think we need to know what is the basis. I mean, an administration is entitled to change the terms and conditions, of visas and letting people into the country. So I don't know his case. I don't know whether he's being punished because of his viewpoints.
Because he's a South Sudanese national, not because of his political viewpoints.
Yeah, well, the president has almost complete control over those sort of immigration, factors, those visa factors that, so it may be unfortunate for him, but it doesn't sound like it's the same sort of case as Mahmoud Khalil that people are talking about. And so I have no particular view on South Sudan. I'm not that familiar with it, but certainly there are countries we do not allow people to come here from, and I can't assess whether that's good or bad. Obviously, it's not good for him. But, the government does have the power to regulate who comes into the country.
Another free speech issue, or at least that's what the Associated Press is claiming it is, their access to the White House press room. Huge victory for the AP and free press, so declared Axios after federal judge Trevor McFadden issued a preliminary injunction in the AP versus Budowich case. That it's just an injunction. This is, still yet to be fully litigated. But is the AP case really a free speech case, or is it more an executive power case?
Well, I think the argument is that they were punished not because the executive is setting general ground rules applied to everybody for who can attend, the press conferences, that they were specifically singled out because of their, viewpoint. And that viewpoint discrimination can be a First Amendment violation. I think it's a little trickier because we all know that for a generation there has been viewpoint discrimination in favor of left-leaning and, legacy media. So the Trump administration probably shot itself in the foot legally when it announced that it was, why it was, excluding AP. But I don't think it's that easy a case. I don't think it's as simple as that. That's the argument, and that's the argument the judge apparently accepted at this preliminary stage. I think the White House should have a lot of discretion as to who it lets in to its press conferences.
Well, right. I mean, James Toronto, writing in the Journal about the judge's opinion here. Does Judge McFadden want to spend the next 3.5 years micromanaging the White House press shop by refereeing endless disputes by Trump and the AP over a settlement or a permanent injunction, probably bound for a higher court? Even the court notes in its injunction that the president is not a party to this case, and the defense has not argued that an injunction would affect his constitutional authority in any way. But in fact, they actually did. The president has absolute discretion to give interviews to whomever he pleases, and the same discretion extends to whom he allows in the Oval Office, Air Force One, and Mar-a-Lago. And again, you want a federal judge regulating those executive decisions about those spaces for 3.5 years. That seems like an untenable position.
Well, that's the position the federal courts have put themselves in on a whole host of issues that are being litigated, that they're essentially micromanaging the executive branch. Again, here, the judge, who was a Trump appointee from Trump 1.0, found a First Amendment violation. If the Trump administration had simply said nothing and said, okay, this month AP's not on the list, I don't think anything would have happened. But by announcing that they were punishing AP's viewpoint, that's what gave them a potential, constitutional claim. So, yes, I think that is the problem. I mean, I argued when the judge in Rhode Island, the federal court judge, imposed a freeze on freezing funding that, these other judges also refused to allow the government even to refuse. Now they've been overturned. Refused to allow the government even to review contracts for fraud and things like that, and said, pay it all next week. I said, you should be in there every single day saying, Judge, we've discovered this problem with this. Can we pay this? Can we pay that? You should be in court 3-4 times a day, and these judges will regret appointing themselves as effectively administrators of the executive department. And I think that's the same thing with the press relations. The federal court, not all of them, some judges have refused to go along with this, but in particular districts, particularly D.C., Southern District of New York, Massachusetts, the judges have really overstepped their boundaries.
Yes, and so the Supreme Court's slapping down some of those judges specifically and generally about those overreaches, the Alien Enemies Act, the ability to terminate people on probationary status, the ability to stop paying these DOE grants. Did you think that will be sufficient to send a message throughout the inferior courts system that you need to knock off, these Boasberg impersonations you're doing?
I'm not sure. I think it will have some impact. We're now, in the past week or so, we're up to 3 or 4 stays issued by the Supreme Court on lower court injunctions, including some important ones as to where people who are being deported have to bring their cases, that they can't just run to D.C. because they know they're going to get a favorable judge. They've got to bring it to the location. So I think it will have an impact, but a lot of the judges, really, it's unfortunate because I'm a big believer and supporter of judicial review and the judiciary. A lot of these judges have acted like politicians in the worst kind of ways. And it's really, I called back in February for the Supreme Court to intervene, when it was those early cases, that if you don't put a stop to this now, this is going to get out of control. and it has been out of control. You've got the craziest orders being issued, like, pay $2 billion to contractors by tomorrow night. I mean, that was actually one of the orders, okay, that they got stayed. Pay it $2 billion by tomorrow night. The judge doesn't even know who the contractors are. The contractors aren't in front of the court, doesn't even know what the contracts are, but somebody's complaining the world is going to end if $2 billion is not paid to contractors by tomorrow night. And the judge issues that order, and they did get it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court essentially put a hold on it and sent it back down. But that's the sort of stuff we're getting. And first of all, those cases ordering people to be paid shouldn't even be in federal court. If you are a contractor and you have a dispute with the government over what you were paid, you have to go to the Federal Court of Claims. You can't go to federal district court. So this whole thing has been a complete absurdity of judges who don't even have jurisdiction, like Judge Boasberg, or however it's pronounced, Boasberg, issuing an injunction, and the Supreme Court finally had to tell him, you didn't even have jurisdiction here. You shouldn't have ruled on this. And so you have federal court judges, believe me, as somebody who has been a plaintiff or representing plaintiffs, and our organization looks to represent plaintiffs, it's really hard to get into federal court. You have to show you have legal standing to be there. You have to show you have jurisdiction. You have to show you have venue, okay? Unless, of course, you're opposing the Trump administration, in which case the federal judges ignore all that stuff and just issue what they think is the right ruling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, finally, the Supreme Court has started to push back. It's long overdue, as you say. Some of these opinions weren't opinions; they were ransom notes. Professor Jacobson, William Jacobson, clinical professor of law and director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell, founder of LegalInsurrection.com, and president of the Legal Insurrection Foundation, as well as the Equal Protection Project. Professor Jacobson, thank you as always.
Great. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Your business is under attack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a fact. Small businesses are the low-hanging fruit. You may think you're protected, but you're vulnerable in many ways, and cyber attackers actively prey on small businesses. But Turnkey can protect you. Turnkey is the key to cyber protection. Turnkey has a quick and efficient 12-point evaluation to determine if your business, your profits, are at risk. And right now, for a limited time, Turnkey is offering the first month of service to all new customers free. Peace of mind, free. It includes all Microsoft licensing, antivirus, anti-malware, and completed data backup both on-site and off-site, plus help desk support. Don't leave you, your employees, and your customers vulnerable. Talk to Turnkey. Visit turnkey.pro. 3 decades of experience. That's turnkey.pro. Turnkey, the champion of small business. At AlmostFreeTeeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles great again. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get a beautiful dental implant-supported smile. Check if you qualify right now at AlmostFreeTeeth.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
We'll return to a discussion of the Chinese Communist Party and, of course, in the context of trade disputes with Ian Williams, former foreign correspondent for the BBC at 8:08.
Today, another cold one. We will get there. It has snowed twice this week. Good times. Always fun in April. Today, a high of 45 degrees. Tomorrow, some sunshine, a little bit warmer. A high in the 60s. It is now 8 a.m. WIND Chicago.
Less inflation. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Amid all the worry about Trump tariffs spiking up prices, we just learned inflation declined slightly in March from February, and the consumer price index also went down annually. Fox Business Network's Cheryl Casoni.
Month over month, the headline number, negative 0.1%. Year over year, we came in, headline number 2.4%. Wall Street was looking for 2.6%. So that's lighter than expected.
And that's also a drop from the 2.8% annual inflation in February. One price that keeps rising, though, eggs. A new record high, $6.23 a dozen on average, continuing the increase blamed on a bird flu outbreak. Now a tariff update.
Yesterday, the European Union finalised a set of tariffs on US goods. Today, it's put them on hold. The EU responding in kind to President Donald Trump's announcement that most of the trade tariffs he planned to impose are being frozen for 90 days.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. President Trump's reciprocal tariff pause came after many countries came forward to negotiate. Top White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett tells Fox.
We've already got offers on the table for more than 15 countries. 15 countries. Great. Now, that doesn't mean there's a deal, but it means that you've heard the much larger number for people who call and they want to talk.
But China's not negotiating. President Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 125%. On Wall Street the day after a big stock rebound, reacting to the tariff pause, selling may return. Dow futures down 700 points. The House may vote today on what President Trump calls a big, beautiful bill. The Senate's budget blueprint funding his agenda. He just posted on Truth Social it's coming along really well. It includes the biggest tax cuts in history, extending the 2017 cuts. But a vote on that bill was postponed last night. Some Republicans are opposed, prompting GOP Congressman Derek Van Orden to say,
there is a small group once again in the Republican conference that thinks that they got 77 million votes and that they're the president of the United States. They're not.
An American jailed in Russia for treason, Ksenia Karelina, was released today in a prisoner swap with the U.S. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 40 degrees in Chicago. In the AM 560 The Answer newsroom, I'm Nikki Whaley. President Trump says his 90-day pause on tariffs was not part of the planned negotiation with foreign countries. Speaking from the Oval Office, Trump says sometimes it's not a negotiation until it is.
And it may not be a negotiation. It may not last. I mean, things may be asked that I think are not fair to us. Look, we've been ripped off by essentially everybody for 35 years.
He added that the U.S. has to stay flexible during this period. The pause excludes China, but Trump said that China wants to make a deal. The president expressed confidence that a trade deal will be made with every country. Mayor Brandon Johnson hopes to get a better handle on the city's next budget. He sent a letter to aldermen with a list of scheduled budget-focused meetings starting next month. News is a service of Goldilocks, offering Chicagoland state-of-the-art smart security systems to protect your home or business. AM 560 listeners receive 3 months of monitoring free with new installs. Get peace of mind by calling Goldilocks at 708-889-5600. Again, that's 708-889-5600. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes, but now time for the Signature Bank Business Beat.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
The European Union says it will pause tariff countermeasures for 90 days to give negotiations a chance, though the countermeasures will kick in if negotiations are unsatisfactory. President Trump yesterday paused reciprocal tariffs on all trading partners except for China for 90 days. Stock futures have turned negative after the Dow rose more than 2,900 yesterday following the tariff pause. Shoppers continue to buy at Costco last month. Tariff uncertainty did not impact sales, which rose 8.6% over last year. Fresh foods were a top category, but shoppers were also picking up jewelry, toys, and seasonal items. Costco's online sales were up 16%. Wall Street will be reacting today to the Consumer Price Index for March. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Cosolda. Invested in you.
For nearly a decade, AM 560 has marked the start of summer with a night of cigar smoking and great conversation. And this year, we've expanded Cigar Night to 2 nights. Wednesday, May 21st at Goldbert's Farm in Pingree Grove. And Thursday, May 22nd at Gaelic Park in Oak Forest. Featuring the great Larry Elder, along with AM 560's Dan Proft and Sean Thompson. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. Sponsored by Fox Valley Corp. points.
You've probably been hearing a lot of buzz about tariffs.
I haven't.
Really?
What's a tariff?
It's a tax on imported goods.
It makes these imported goods more expensive.
Oh, that explains why I've never heard of tariffs.
Why?
Because 92.3% of the furniture at Penny Mustard is made in the USA.
True.
In fact, most of it is built by local craftsmen and women right here in the Midwest.
And locally sourced furniture will never have a tariff on it.
So when you invest in new furniture at Penny Mustard, you won't be paying extra taxes and shipping costs.
Besides, tariffs or no tariffs, our American-made Penny Mustard Strong furniture will last generations longer than IFE-made furniture shipped in from overseas.
You get so much more for your money when you buy American.
Tell me more about these tariffs.
Can we talk about this later? I'm so tired of hearing about them.
Oh, so I guess you can say that all this talk about tariffs is taxing.
I see what you did there.
PennyMustard.com.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
It's Dr. David Kolbaba.
Hey guys, it's not enough to manipulate your testosterone by getting those shots. Did you ever stop to ask, why is my testosterone level so low anyway? Well, if you're a Y guy like me, I've got something for you to think about. Hormone levels get skewed not with age. Hormones get skewed by poor lifestyle habits. Our male hormone test can help us find the why behind your male hormone challenges. So give us a call and get your male hormone test today. Pumping hormones into your bloodstream is not the answer, not without the many health risks associated. Stop tampering with your hormones, because if you don't, you'll probably live long enough to regret it. So from one Y guy to another Y guy, let's get her done the right way, the only way, taking more natural steps towards healthy hormone balance and performance today. It's our male hormone test. No blood, just spit. Call 800-794-1855. That's 800-794-1855. It's HealthQuest Radio with me, Dr. David Kolbaba, this Saturday morning at 11.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money? A bigger house? Maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How you wake up each day? How you sleep? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or even eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. So give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. And it just takes a phone call, 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Wherever you're hurting, in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF.
National security is at risk, and China controls most of the world's supply of antimony, a critical metal for military and defense technology. Military Metals Corp is taking action and securing a Western-controlled supply with projects in Europe and North America. Critical minerals are the backbone of modern defense. Now's the time to pay attention. The stock trades on the OTC under ticker MILIF. Call your broker today or go to www.militarymetalscorp.com to learn more.
Taking a look at the roads on the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 17 minutes outbound, about 18 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Byrne interchange, 41 minutes outbound, about 34 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 43 minutes outbound, 33 minutes. And on the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 36 minutes outbound, about 29 minutes. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. No waiting, no problems, no charge. For in-store verbal appraisals, bring your gold or silver in today. FoxValleyCoins.com. From the Team Huckberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Of course, the big story is the big trade impasse between China and the United States. Although tariffs are being ratcheted up between the United States and China, we're holding harmless all our other countries to focus everybody's attention on China, as Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, explained yesterday.
This was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Right. We needed this to realize, or the world needed this to realize, that the Chinese Communist Party is the bad actor, unless you're similarly inclined ideologically. Bessent also adding that, look, China can go to 84%. Well, we go to 125%, and they go to 125%. We can go to 175%, and we can do this all day long. Because China needs us more than we need them, which is basically the administration's posture with respect to every country on the planet.
We've given 90 days, and the only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will too. And in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global South.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Ian Williams, who is a former foreign correspondent for BBC Channel 4 News and NBC, author of Vampire State, The Rise and Fall of the Chinese Economy. Ian Williams, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
A pleasure.
So you heard from the Treasury Secretary yesterday that Trump has goaded China into a bad position. This escalating tariff situation back and forth between the two countries hurts China a lot more than it hurts the United States. And ultimately, now that we put a pause with our partners, or mainly our trading partners and allies, we'll get everybody together, and then we're going to gang up on China. And how will they like that? That going to work?
I don't know. I mean, it's been a dizzying 2 or 3 days, and I'm amazed by all these analogies of prize fighters in the ring, 2 racing cars bearing down on each other in a game of chicken. I think China's gambling that America will blink first, because although the Chinese economy is certainly vulnerable in multiple ways, yes, because of its reliance on cheap exports, also because it's in a bit of a bad way at the moment with a property crisis, youth unemployment, an economic model that simply isn't working. But they're gambling that the threshold of pain in China is much higher than it is in the U.S. You know, we've already seen the bond markets having an impact. We've already seen the stock markets falling, people's pension plans. The potential political pressure on Trump is far higher than it is on Xi in China. China's a dictatorship. The people will take more because they haven't got too much choice is part of the thinking there. And he has got quite a substantial toolkit that goes well beyond tariffs.
Well, and the well beyond tariffs, I mean, one of the things that was running concurrent to the escalating tariffs is the military exercises that the Chinese Communist Party was again doing in the direction of Taiwan. And one of the things that he potentially has at his disposal, if he wanted to really escalate, is to put an embargo on the Taiwanese, right?
Yeah, and you're already seeing rehearsals for that. That's part and parcel of these training exercises, this intimidation that's been going on around Taiwan. And it's an old game plan of the Chinese Communist Party. It is now a very nationalistic party. In fact, you could probably more accurately describe it as a nationalist party, a pretty virulent nationalist party, as opposed to a communist party. And when things get tough at home, Xi turns up the rhetoric. He turns up the xenophobia, the nationalism. And you're seeing this online in China at the moment with calls for boycotts, which was actually answered by overnight by a reduction in the amount of movies that they're going to import into China. And, I think that's a sign that you're going to see a lot more focused boycotts on particular companies and particular industries. But you're right, that is a danger that when Xi comes under pressure, that he does resort to more nationalism, for more banging of the nationalist drum. And of course, that's where the situation around Taiwan becomes very worrying, because it's a distraction, but it's a dangerous distraction. But it's very tempting for a communist leader who's under economic pressure.
Well, what do you think?
In terms of not importing as many American-made movies, I mean, he will be sparing the Chinese people Snow White, so that probably will put him in good stead. But what about what's at the disposal of the United States that would be impactful to China? Things like student visas that are particularly attractive to the elites within the Chinese Communist Party and its ranks.
I think that's important, but I think to some extent the Chinese Communist Party has looked on with increasing suspicion and unease at the export both of students and of entrepreneurs, because you've seen a huge exodus over recent years as Xi has cracked down on entrepreneurs, particularly on the tech sector. They've been fleeing. Singapore's been popular. California's been popular. They want to protect their assets. They want to protect their money. They want to protect their freedom, because a lot of entrepreneurs have simply disappeared or had their companies stripped away from them. So I think that there'll be mixed feelings about this. I think the Chinese businesses and entrepreneurs have suffered greatly in recent years, but I think that Xi, to some extent, is quite suspicious about those who have been looking for a foreign bolt hole. So it kind of cuts both ways, but this is an economy which has a long experience of coercion and bullying. It's been part and parcel of China's rise, of China's economic model over recent years. You fall into line, that's the price for access to China. That's the price for market access, for investment. And most companies have tended to fall into place, hand over your technology as a price for market access. So China's got a long experience of bullying and coercion as part of its economic policy. And it's in some respects, it's a bigger toolkit than the U.S. has, and it goes well beyond tariffs.
Yeah, and they've stolen a lot of intellectual property. But what about the American consumer? I don't think people realize about 50 to 80% of what we buy is from China. So how is it going to affect us?
Well, prices will go up, but also the choice will go down, because you're seeing already ships which have been on the way to the U.S., on their way to the big ports on the West Coast, being turned around and redirected because they don't know what is going to happen. They don't know the prices that will be paid, the wholesale prices, don't forget, because the tariffs go on the wholesale price, which is only about a quarter of what the price will be in the shops. So the increase in the shops will not be that 125% headline figure. But certainly the days of made in China, of cheap Chinese goods, do look like they're over. And there are other substitutes. There are countries such as Vietnam, Indonesia, India, which are increasingly filling that gap. with consumer goods, and they will be somewhat relieved, of course, that the heavy tariffs that were originally imposed on them have been lifted. But certainly, the days of cheap made in China do really look like they're over.
Well, I mean, that's I guess predicated on the idea that there won't be a deal in the offing. But Stephen Miller, one of Trump's top policy advisors, he had this to say on Fox yesterday about China being forced to the table. I want you to take a listen and get your reaction.
I believe that China will be forced very soon to come to the table for the simple reason that China's economy is completely dependent on its exports to the United States and to the West. China has built its entire industrial strategy since its entrance into the World Trade Organization on being able to sell highly subsidized, currency-manipulated, dumped goods into U.S. markets. It is an industrial strategy from China to product dump strategically to take out American steel, to take out American aluminum, to take out core American defense industries and defense needs so that we're reliant on China. And what's happening here is that China is now discovering for the first time that they have met an American president who is not going to be intimidated, who's not going to be bullied, who's not going to be coerced, who's going to stand up for our essential security needs. Yeah, China needs us because of their export dependency on China.
Do you think that's an accurate depiction of the of President Xi's thought on this?
I don't think so. I think he's far more determined to dig his heels in on this. I don't see. I mean, there was some more reasonably conciliatory words coming out of the Chinese Commerce Ministry this morning, which were far less inflammatory than some of the comments we heard yesterday. But I don't get a sense that Xi is going to come running to the table for a deal. I think Beijing has been preparing for this for some time. Yes, they probably didn't expect to see such a high rate of tariffs imposed on them and the pain that's causing, but they've already been trying to spread their investment. They've already been trying to shift their pattern of trade and exports elsewhere. Some of it is barely disguised transshipment through other countries such as Vietnam and Thailand, where they built facilities that do little more than bolt together Chinese goods. But I think that Xi has been anticipating some sort of showdown like this for some time and trying to make the Chinese economy more resilient. Now, I think it's far from resilient and it will suffer, but I don't expect that Xi will fold overnight.
Well, right, not overnight, but I mean, it could reach a point where it's sort of which falls first, or which is inflicting more pain. The internal contradictions of the Chinese Communist Party's reign. I mean, it's the same. It's very Soviet in this sense. It's the internal contradictions is why the central planning, why China has never realized the strength of its numbers and why its economy is as precarious as you described it. So, will he hold out until those internal contradictions could actually produce sort of another Tiananmen Square event? Or will he try to head that off before it gets that far? And, just like Gorbachev, if that's his approach, he could end up missing the window he had to save his regime, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think the threshold for pain is far higher in China because it is a dictatorship, because he doesn't need to be so bothered about public opinion or economic pain. But that's not to say that he can discount either. We saw his hand was forced at the end of the COVID-19 epidemic when they abandoned their zero COVID policy after a whole wave of protests, which had united workers and students, the middle class, against the draconian measures. So certainly he can't get his own way entirely, and the Communist Party will be well aware of simmering discontent. And arguably, the legitimacy of the party, because there aren't any elections, it's sometimes called performance legitimacy, the party's ability to deliver economic stability and economic growth is fundamental to its legitimacy. So, yes, the threshold of pain in China is probably higher because it's not a democracy, but certainly there are undercurrents there of dissatisfaction which could certainly come back to haunt him.
Ian Williams, former foreign correspondent for BBC Channel 4 News and NBC, author of Vampire State, The Rise and Fall of the Chinese Economy. Ian, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
President Trump has made some pretty amazing claims since he's taken his seat as president. He's delivering on what he promised. On Inauguration Day, Trump's very first declaration was,
"The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish."
Consider this. Since the election, gold has shot up hundreds of dollars per ounce, shattering all-time record highs. Fox Valley Coins does not pretend to know the future, but they do know that if you're buying or selling gold or silver, they are the place to do it. These are some of the top reasons people choose a dealer. You want a national dealer with a local presence you can deal with face-to-face. You want a large selection, the best prices, and great service. You want to walk in with cash and walk out with the best product. You want to deal with legacy dealers with integrity. Whether buying or selling or just one valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your answer for choosing a dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
You've heard us talk about our campaign this spring with Caring Network. They're a local pro-life organization based here in Chicagoland, and they're working to prevent abortions in Illinois by reaching abortion-minded women with a message of life and hope. But they need your help to do that. Illinois has become a destination for abortion tourism. As our neighboring states have restricted abortion, more women are coming here. The number of abortions in Illinois has doubled in less than 7 years. The Caring Network is committed to reaching the abortion-minded woman, the woman who gets pregnant unexpectedly and is likely to go to a Planned Parenthood or another abortion provider to end her pregnancy. Caring Network needs your help to reach her first. You can help this effort by making a one-time donation of $150. And that amount will make it possible for Caring Network to reach 5 women who are considering abortion. What does reaching her first mean? They provide services like telehealth counseling with a nurse, or they can schedule an in-person appointment to show a pregnant woman her baby in an ultrasound. To learn more and to make a donation to Caring Network, just go to 560theanswer.com/caring. That's 560theanswer.com/caring.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare, and I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing. Attorneys, this was meant to be funny, so please don't sue me, especially my friend Kenneth from Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-919-1441. 800-919-1441. 800-919-1441.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hey all, Jim Carr here. I am the owner of Car Machine and Tool in Elk Grove Village and loyal customer of Signature Bank. As a second generation owner, I knew I had to shift from operating as an old school machine shop to what I can proudly say is now one of the fastest growing aerospace manufacturing facilities in the region. Signature Bank was there every step step of the way through our expansion efforts, including financing our new state-of-the-art facility. Their valuable industry expertise and constant communication throughout the construction process made our vision possible. Many thanks to Signature Bank for supporting Car Machine and Tool. You set the bar high for other banks.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It's Uncle Sam, and he wants some of your retirement money. Like it or not, you're going to owe taxes on your 401k. The good news is you may be able to reduce your tax bill with some strategic planning. Scott Tucker and the team at Scott Tucker Solutions are here to help. You'll work together to craft a plan that's designed to help make sure you don't pay a penny more than you should. Taxes are historically low right now, and we all know they probably won't remain this low forever, so call Scott Tucker and the Scott Tucker Solutions team before this tax-saving opportunity is gone. 847-474-3888 or go to 560retirement.com. It's time to preserve the retirement you deserve without giving more than necessary to your favorite uncle. Call Scott Tucker and the team at Scott Tucker Solutions now to schedule your 401k tax review. 847-474-3888 or go to 560retirement.com. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm does not give tax advice.
AM 560, The Answer.
Dan, we wanted to offer our condolences to a female police officer from the 18th District, 3 years on the force, and apparently last night she allegedly shot herself in the bathroom, committed suicide inside the district. That's why this morning there's a lot of police activity out there, but there is help, officers, if you need it, please. Just know that our thoughts and prayers are with her. All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
At 8:38, we'll continue our talk on trade and Trump's wild tariff ride. Get another free trader perspective, so I just won't be the one suffering the slings and arrows. Norbert Michael is the Vice President and Director of the Cato Institute Center for Monetary and Financial Alternatives. He joins us at 8:38.
But first, let's stop by the newsroom once again. Here's Nikki Whaley.
Good morning. It's 40 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. House Speaker Mike Johnson scrapped last night's expected vote on President Trump's budget bill. The measure, which already passed in the Senate, calls for tax cuts, an increase in immigration enforcement and spending on defense, and a raise in the debt limit. The House planned for a Wednesday night vote but faced opposition from a number of Republicans, which pushed the vote back to later today at the earliest. Several hardline conservatives have spoken out against the Senate's plan due to there being only $4 billion in spending cuts, whereas the House's version would make up to $2 trillion in cuts. Chicago aldermen are moving forward with an ordinance that would ban anyone convicted of participating in January 6th at the U.S. Capitol from working for the city. The measure advanced yesterday by the City Council Workforce Development Committee. It's scheduled to be voted on by the full City Council next Wednesday. News is a service of Quick Delivery Service. Make Quick Delivery Service your personal ground crew anytime, anywhere, any place. When you need to move your shipment or freight, Quick Delivery will get it there. Get a quote in advance and eliminate any surprises at QuickDelivery.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
President Trump's tariff policies have turned the stock market into a roller coaster.
Across the board, all of the different sectors are down.
Reciprocal tariffs are also being lowered during that period. U.S. stocks surged on the news.
Don't know how long these tariffs are going to be in place.
Chaos that is being created as all U.S. trading partners are hit.
The American public is invested in some way in the market.
Stay on top of where the markets are headed next, right here on AM 560. The Answer.
All of us need to be prepared to defend ourselves and our families, and we need to start with the less lethal option to avoid the legal complications associated with firearms. Byrna has their less lethal pistol launcher. It is equipped with tear gas and kinetic ammunition. It is designed to incapacitate any attacker for up to 40 minutes. Go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity. Right now, you'll get 10% off. Let me tell you this Byrna story. Bob was at home. An intruder physically forced his way inside. Now, luckily, Bob had just received his Byrna 4 days prior to this incident, and he used it to get the man outside and off of his property. Byrna, it's legal in all 50 states. There's no background check needed. It can be shipped directly to your door. Now, see the powerful technology that is Burner. Go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity. Right now, you'll get 10% off. That's byrna.com/Hannity today.
Virago is fending off viruses and making America healthy again.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Huber. I'm one of the co-developers of Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail. Virago was formulated to boost your immune system to fight off the viruses that you encounter every day. I made Virago into a liquid formula to improve the absorption and to provide a rapid response for your immune system. Taking Virago every day helps your immune system fight off all types of daily assaults. Go to myvirago.com. That's myvirogo.com and receive 30% off using promo code IMMUNE. And remember, Maha starts with Virago.
Boost your immune system with Virago. Order your bottle today. Visit myvirago.com. That's myvirogo.com.
And use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%.
That's myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Virago and Maha, making America healthy again.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Scott Tucker Solutions and his show Retirement Decoded. Sunday mornings at 8. Learn more at scotttuckersolutions.com.
Taking a look at the roadways, the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 20 minutes, outbound 16 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Byrne interchange, 41 minutes, outbound about 35 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the old post office, 47 minutes, outbound 31 minutes. On the Stevenson, this is inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 37 minutes, outbound 27 minutes. On the Dan Rand inbound from 95th to the Byrne interchange, 25 minutes, outbound is 15 minutes. This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies. Now your ideas don't have to wait. Dell Technologies and Intel are pushing what technology can do, so great ideas can happen right now. Find out how you can bring your ideas to life at Dell.com. Welcome to Now. From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Mainly cloudy, chilly for today, a high 46. Clear tonight, low 35. Mostly sunny, breezy on Friday, high for tomorrow 52. Mostly sunny on Saturday with a high 60. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul has drawn the ire of President Trump. No surprise there. You knew they were going to be in an impasse on this approach to international trade. Rand Paul, doing a podcast for Reason Magazine, had this to say about what he has heard back from businesses in his state of Kentucky in the early stages of the imposition of tariffs, and now the pause on some tariffs and the imposition of higher tariffs.
I have the farmers who call me and they say, well, we export about 20% of what we sell, but we're still suffering from the tariffs in the previous Trump administration in 2018, 2019. The bourbon industry contacts me and says, well, retaliatory tariffs by Europe and Canada and other countries will hurt our exports of bourbon. I have shippers, international shippers and domestic shippers who also do international. They say it'll hurt them. Home builders say, well, if lumber and steel go up, the price of houses will go up. And already we have high interest rates and we already have inflation in homes. So I really don't get anybody coming to me and say, please have tariffs. Also, they're worried about the tariffs.
Yeah. Right. Everybody wants tariffs retracted. Well, what does that say about the underlying policy to begin with? And also, again, as I've said many times, what we understand about central planning and its effectiveness. Rand Paul just sort of baselining it here a little bit when it comes to talk on trade.
Trade has been growing exponentially, international trade. But you know what else has been growing exponentially? GDP. GDP per capita is growing exponentially over 70 years. And so trade is actually proportional And so we have to actually have the fundamental debate, is trade good or bad? And without question, the statistics overwhelmingly say trade is good. We're getting richer. 100,000 people escape poverty every day because of capitalism and its extension, trade.
Yes, international trade is good. Main Street and Wall Street are not disconnected. I'm trying to get through all of the shibboleths that are bandied about in these times. Another one is on trade deficits. And again, I've addressed it, so I'll cede my time to Art Laffer, his conversation, who's a supporter of President Trump, who wrote the Unleash Prosperity book with Steve Moore about Trump's second term and is generally maintains his support and advocacy for Trump policies, except here, because there's some basic things that are said or is used as predicates to policy choices that are not true, like the rap you keep hearing on trade deficits.
The trade deficit is not a problem. If you get people to bring their businesses back to the U.S., to load up their machines in Mexico, to drive them up over the border so they now employ Americans and not Mexicans, if you do that because we have good policies, that's called a Mexican trade surplus and a U.S. trade deficit. Trade deficits are capital surpluses. That's when you bring the capital home. So anything that says the trade deficit is bad is completely wrong. The U.S. needs a trade deficit because that's a capital surplus. When Reagan's tax cuts took effect on January 1st, 1983, the U.S. went into a huge trade deficit as the economy boomed beyond belief. Everyone was trying to invest in the United States, Larry. And what do you want? Capital lined up in your borders trying to get into your country or trying to get out of your country? Of course you want them to come into the country, and that's what happened with Reagan. And by the way, that's what's going to happen with Trump with its phenomenal policies. What he has done and all the rest of the policies are spectacular.
Right, and we're waiting with bated breath for that budget resolution to move out of the House so that an extension of tax cuts with the addition of a few others can be advanced. Norbert Michel is the Vice President Director of the Cato Institute Center for Monetary and Financial Alternatives. He joins us now. Norbert Michel, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for having me this morning.
So one of the other canards that's bandied about is that free trade hollowed out the middle class, and I know you wrote about it, so could you address that?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of shibboleths, as you put it, and this is a big one. You know, this idea that somebody needs to come in and save the middle class because it's been decimated over the last 40 or 50 years is completely wrong, because the statistics just literally prove that they have not been decimated. Middle class has done very well, so has the class right beneath the middle class. If you look over the last 40 or 50 years, the number of American households earning, and this is inflation adjusted, earning more than $100,000 has more than tripled. And if you look at the share earning under $35,000, that share has gone down. So what does that mean? That means people have been moving up the income ladder, and it's pretty much steadily over the last 5 decades. If you measure income, say, roughly 10 different ways, there's only going to be one way that you can find that shows that it's been stagnant. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of those populist folks focus on to try to prove their case. But you can't do that. There are lots of different ways to look at income, lots of different time periods. You have to look at the whole picture, and the whole picture is really good. People have done very, very well.
But the pictures that are dreary are the company towns that used to have a U.S. Steel plant or Bethlehem Steel plant or another big manufacturing facility that shuttered and moved some or all of their operations offshore. And this is what people focus in on. And you're empathetic to people who lose their jobs, just as we have been empathetic to people who've lost their jobs in the federal government. But at some point, some things have to give. And that's just the nature of it, particularly in the private sector as opposed to the public. And so I don't want to just say like these things happen, like there's no interest in those people, because there is, but sure. Not everybody is winning all at the same time every time.
No, that's right. And I mean, look, I am sympathetic to anyone who loses their job, anyone. But the truth of the matter is that the service sector, not the manufacturing sector, the service sector, has accounted for a larger share of the U.S. labor force since the Civil War, and a larger share than agriculture since the early 1900s. The service sector has always been the key driver of income and wealth in the United States, almost literally always. Look, the share of total jobs in the manufacturing sector, it didn't just start going down in 2000 when China joined the WTO. It didn't just start going down in 1994 when we created NAFTA. It's been dropping since World War II. and it's not just in the United States. It's in all developed countries. And the reason is productivity. Our technology has improved across the board, and throughout the world, we can produce more things with fewer people. And that's been the nature of the economy throughout the developed world for a very long time.
So is that the reason why President Trump got up there and said 90,000 manufacturing plants have closed? And it's not all because of moving the manufacturing over to foreign countries. It's because of animation.
A lot of it is automation. And, I don't know which numbers he's getting from where, but the total number of manufacturing establishments is pretty steady in the last 10 years. It's gone up and down over the last 5 decades, but it hasn't just dropped. And look, and again, like even if it did, that doesn't change the income figures. The middle class folks, the folks at the lower end of the income distribution, they've all been doing very, very well. In many cases, many points during the last 5 decades, people in the lower end of the distribution have had higher income growth than people at the higher end of the distribution. And throughout all this time, all of our manufacturing stats have been going up. We produce more stuff than we ever have. We have more productivity, basically since ever. All of our manufacturing output is close to an all-time high. We're basically the global leader in value added per worker. So that's a productivity measure. If you look at some individual examples like steel, like that's a favorite one of the so-called Rust Belt. Steel in 1980, one steel worker in an hour couldn't even produce 1/10 of a ton of steel, but now one worker produces almost 2 tons of steel in an hour. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like that across all different industries. So, by definition, you don't need as many people.
Right, and then the irony is you don't need as many people, and yet a lot of these industries, I know guys in the steel business have trouble finding finding workers, and particularly finding workers who are American citizens. So I mean, at the same time, those two dynamics that sort of counter the narrative. I wonder if you have an exception, sort of philosophically, for what you hear a lot, which is sort of the things that are core to our national security. Let's talk, pharmaceuticals, rare earths, and items related to the defense industry. Should those be treated, separately from the promotion of general free trade?
No. No, I mean, I'm going to say no here. Look, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, there's lots of different moving parts to that, but it's simply not true that we're dependent on China for all of our pharmaceuticals. The supply chains are very diverse. Could they be more focused here? I suppose so. But I mean, this is not, it simply, again, is not the case that we're sitting here dependent on China for something in particular. If you look at the way pharmaceuticals are made, electronics are made, cars are made, they're made by combining different things, different skills, different things from all over the world. So, it's just, I don't accept the premise in the first place, I guess. So, no, I don't. If there was one specific exception that we had to make, I guess I'd be open to listening to that, but that's certainly not what I'm hearing.
What about semiconductors?
Well, again, the United States is part of the supply chain and the process of making semiconductors, and it doesn't, the way manufacturing has evolved, that does not mean that any one particular country will do all semiconductor production of all kinds from start to finish across the board, even in Taiwan, even in Korea. So, those are some of the dominant places where they're put together, but it's not the case that we're literally dependent on a politician there to flip a switch and say you don't get any more.
But I mean, just with semiconductors, I mean, we did see during COVID when politicians all over the place were flipping switches that when you disrupt the supply chain, I mean, you did have a real semiconductor shortage in this country, and so it's not, it doesn't turn off the spigot completely, but it definitely presents a problem.
Well, when you do something like what we did in COVID, you have shortages of all kinds, and we did have shortages. I mean, we had toilet paper shortages. I mean, that's a mess, So trade restrictions and tariffs. That's not necessarily the answer. You could just as easily make the case. I mean, if you listen to the people manufacturing these things, even iPhones. Part of the problem is the high skilled labor shortages in the United States, and people don't want to hear this, but an American is an American, and it doesn't matter if that American has Indian descent, Chinese descent, Japanese descent, any other country. If we attracted more high skilled labor, then that would be one way to defray some of those concerns.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's interesting too. I mean, that these companies, move like speedboats where governments move like battleships, and so we saw that already with Apple. Mm-hmm. Apple just moved production of their iPhones not from China to the United States, but from China to India, and so it's shipping through India now, which doesn't have zero tariffs because they got hit too, although the pause is on. But they have lower tariffs, and it speaks to what the cost of production Apple believes it would be in the United States versus in India that got hit with a 25% tariff.
That's right. Oh, that's right. That's a great example. It's also a great example of how nimble any of these companies can be, when pushed up against the wall, so to speak. But the core problem there, again, that's having the data scientists and the engineers and the highly educated workforce that's necessary to not just design, but to build and to manufacture and to assemble these things. And, that's something that we haven't had here. We haven't fostered it here. We've actually been pretty difficult in terms of immigration, and that doesn't help us. That hurts us.
Norbert Michel is Vice President, Director of the Cato Institute Center for Monetary and Financial Alternatives. Norbert Michel, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. We've got yet another horrible idea emanating from California. A new speeding ticket regime is launching in the once golden state. Its towns can issue fines based on the income level of the driver. A new law allows California cities to set up speed cameras, but it also makes lower-income drivers eligible to have speeding fines dramatically reduced. The last provision gives the game away. Not surprisingly, it's rolling out first in San Francisco. Handing out different punishments for different people who commit the same infraction based on nothing but their income level may appeal to California leftists. It's certainly equity in action. But it's also a violation of the American principle of equal justice under law. Let's hope that imposing different fines for different people is just another bad trend from California that becomes as obsolete as juice cleanses, pet rocks, and streaking.
All right, all across the country, states are embracing school choice and offering vouchers to families to send students to whichever school they want, including private schools. Unfortunately, as you know, lawmakers in Illinois have resisted this trend despite all the benefits of private education. Well, we have a solution if you want to send your child to a private school. It's called ChicagolandSchoolVouchers.com. It's simple. Just visit ChicagolandSchoolVouchers.com and tell us which private school you want to send your child to. Then we contact the school on your behalf and work to secure a voucher for half off the first year of tuition. Now, typically saving thousands of dollars for families, the program only applies to new students who are not currently enrolled in the school. So if you've been considering sending your child or grandchild to a private school and thought that it was financially out of reach, go to ChicagoSchoolVouchers.com to learn more and to start the process today. That's ChicagolandSchoolVouchers.com.
That shot was money, Lisa. Hey, speaking of, did you ever figure out what to do with your parents' old coin collection?
Not yet. I need a reputable dealer to appraise them. I have no clue what they're worth.
I just finished working on my dad's estate collections. I took it all to Fox Valley Coins. Their customer service was the best. Plus, they're super honest and reputable, but most importantly, experienced. They'll give you the best prices.
Really? They handle estate collections?
Absolutely. Buying, selling, appraising, they do it all. It was quick and simple, and we maintained our privacy. Fox Valley Coins made the whole process easy.
That's exactly what I need. Are they local?
Right in Naperville. They have an easy website to remember. FoxValleyCoins.com.
Perfect. Now let's see if you can return this shot.
Whether buying or selling or just want valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your trusted gold and silver dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
AM 560. The answer.
He's been caught.
Who?
Well, we all grew up with him, and he's finally been caught. Speedy Gonzalez. And no, it wasn't Sylvester the cat that caught him.
Who was it, Dan?
40-year-old Speedy Gonzalez. I thought he'd be older.
He's just 40?
Was caught by Gainesville police. He used an effective method to conceal his thefts. He would stuff high-priced smaller items such as nicotine products, diabetic test strips, and gum into larger containers like trash cans or mailboxes, but then at checkout, he would only pay for the large item and leave the store with the concealed merchandise.
Oh, a little tricky there, huh?
Here we have the chase between police and Speedy Gonzalez before he was cornered and captured.
Did you watch that as a child?
Yeah, I remember it.
Oh,
Sorry.
stand it.
Speedy Gonzalez. He's literally, that's this guy's name. I'm not making it up. It is his real name.
Did he have a change on his birth certificate, or when his parents were born, like, oh, let's name him Speedy Gonzalez?
I don't know. He had a little sombrero on, and he was running away from cats. So that's how Speedy Gonzalez is arrested. Oh, he was arrested in Georgia, and I guess he's going to be extradited back to Gainesville to stand trial. Apparently, he's well known to North Georgia police as well because of his sticky fingers.
Yes. And he's very fast.
Just wanted people to know.
All right,
Speedy
thank
Gonzalez
you.
is.
All right,
Come on, it takes you back to your childhood.
All right, Tom and Jerry tomorrow. Thanks so much to Justin Kosick, our technical producer and soon-to-be father, and to Gwen McCarthy. And we never heard about your golf practice round that you got to witness at the Masters. Can you tell us tomorrow, maybe during Open Mic Friday?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, you're such a tease. All right, today it's going to be 45 degrees for a high under mostly cloudy skies. It is now 9 a.m. WIND, Chicago.
A return to selling.